Good evening, everyone. It's dark, but it's times. Tonight we're going to play book number 3 of the Freeway Warrior series. And let's start with the story so far. You're Carl Phoenix, a survivor, born in California on Thanksgiving Day in the year AD 2000. In 2012, while on winter vacation at your Uncle Jonas and Aunt Betty Ann's ranch in Texas, you were invited to visit a shale oil mine near Austin. It was the first of its kind in Texas. As chief of construction, your uncle was proud to take you on a guided tour of the whole underground complex, which for security reasons was totally self-supporting. It was during this tour on 3 January 2012 that the Holocaust began. You remember how the ground shattered when the shock waves from the first distant explosions reached the mine, and how you thought it was the start of an earthquake, the like of which you had experienced many times at home in California. But as the levels nearest the surface began to collapse and the central elevator shaft filled with rubble, you realized the awful truth. At first there was no way of telling the extent of the surface devastation. Below ground, the safety generators had automatically switched into operation when the main power supply failed, and the tremors had faded quickly, which encouraged your aunt and uncle to believe that the damage above was superficial. Uncle Jonas was confident that the military will mount a rescue operation and that you will be brought out within a few days, a week at the most. Aunt Betty Ann, too, was optimistic. After all, there were emergency supplies, enough to feed 200 men for a whole month. Little did she know that the three of you will end up consuming all those supplies, or that the mine will become your home, your shelter, and your prison for the next 8 years of your life. It was early September in the year 2019 when eventually you broke through to the surface. When you set eyes on the landscape surrounding the mine, it was like looking at the surface of another planet. Few structures had survived the blizzards and intense cold that had swept around the world in the years following the day. And now, after the dust had settled and the sun had returned, the once fertile plains of Austin resembled little more than a desert of parched and broken rock, littered with the artifacts of an ancient civilization. During the first few days, when you began to explore this wilderness, it was easy to believe that you were the only survivors. But on the morning of the 5th day, Uncle Jonas made chance radio contact with a family called Ewell, who were living near the ruins of McKinney, 30 miles north of Dallas. He told him that they had been in touch with a handful of other groups who had managed somehow to survive the Holocaust. Most were isolated and unable to move due to the lack of fuel, food, or water. They were urging those who could travel to join them in McKinney to start a new community there, and some were already on their way. When your uncle and aunt accepted their invitation, the Ewells were enthusiastic, but they also warned you to be wary. Not everyone who had survived wanted to establish a new community. The ruins of some large Texan cities, such as Dallas and Fort Worth, were controlled by gangs of criminals who fought with each other and terrorized anyone seeking to re-establish law and order. They urged you to avoid these gangs at all costs. It took more than a week to discover a vehicle that could transport you to McKinney. It was an old school bus, which had been parked in an underground lot and had survived the years of sub-zero blizzards. With fuel and spares salvaged from the mine, you managed to coax it back to life. Then you set off on your journey north. When you arrived at the town, it was easy to find where the Ewells lived, as their ranch was the only place that was still standing. It looked more like an old frontier post than a ranch, with its fortified perimeter wall, lookout post, and stake-filled moat. Having been ambushed and shot at by the city gangs of Fort Worth during the final stages of your journey, you recognized the need for such defenses. Pop Ewell, the 70-year-old grandfather of the Ewell family, was the leader of this small colony of survivors, and it was he who had urged Uncle Jonas to join them when they had first made radio contact. The colony numbered less than a dozen at the time of your arrival, yet as the airwaves became clearer and new contacts were made, this number had soon more than doubled to 25. It was decided that a name was needed to identify the settlement, and Dallas Colony 1 was adopted, DC-1 for short. From that day on, everyone worked hard to make DC-1 a secure haven for those seeking refuge from the hostile wastelands and marauding city gangs. Cotter Jacks was one such refugee. Before the day, he had been chief mechanic at the International Grand Prix circuit near Lake Dallas, and his incredible skill and knowledge of engines was soon to prove invaluable to the colony. He taught you how to drive, and from a pile of old wrecks that you helped him salvage from the circuit, he built you a powerful customized car. You used it to patrol the highways north of the city, keeping a lookout for gangs of city punks who frequently mounted raids to steal or destroy DC-1 supplies. Cotter also taught you to shoot, and it was your natural prowess with a gun and your skill behind the wheel that were to earn you the begrudging respect of your enemies, who took to calling you the Freeway Warrior. 6 months after you arrived at DC-1, the colony was faced with a major crisis. A heat wave was causing a drought that threatened to destroy the food supply. Crops were failing and the colony's artesian well, its only source of uncontaminated water, was beginning to dry up. The drought was also provoking more attacks from the city punks, who were desperate for food and water. Their common need had united them, and now they posed a very real threat to the security of DC-1. It was the last day of May 2020 when Papuel made radio contact with another colony who were based in the city of Big Spring, 300 miles west of McKinney. Their situation was completely the reverse of DC-1's. They had food and water in plentiful supply, but they were desperately short of fuel. They told of their contact with survivors in Tucson, Arizona, who were also without fuel. The Tucson colony reported that the territories west of the mountains of the Sierra Nevada had been spared the worst effects of the radioactive blizzards that had devastated the rest of the country, and miraculously, much of Southern California was still widely populated. It had survived the last 8 years virtually intact. When you heard the news, you could hardly believe your ears. Perhaps your family were still alive. After all that had happened, there was now a real hope that one day you might be reunited with them. A meeting was held to decide how best to deal with the crisis facing DC-1. Everyone agreed that to stay at McKinney will lead to eventual death, either slowly from starvation or suddenly at the hands of the murderous city gangs. The only choice open to DC-1 was to try to reach California. Only there lay real hope for the future of the colony. The decision was relayed to the survivors at Big Spring, and a deal was struck to rendezvous with them as soon as possible. DC-1 will give them fuel in exchange for food and water, and together they will join up with the Tucson colony for the final stage of the journey to California. Careful preparations were made for the long trek, and 3 vehicles were chosen to make up the convoy: the school bus, your customized roadster, and a gasoline tanker laden with 5,000 gallons of petroleum, siphoned from the underground storage tanks at the Ewell Ranch. Supplies of food and water were adequate, but the colony lacked sufficient firearms and ammunition with which to defend itself. On the day before the convoy was due to leave, one of the colonists was sent north to search the town of Sherman for weapons. He radioed back to say that he had found a cache of hunting rifles and ammunition, but that his truck had broken down, and he was stranded in the town. He had also found a survivor, a beautiful teenage girl, and he requested that you go to Sherman to pick them up. As soon as you arrived, you were ambushed by the scouts of a brutal gang of bikers known as the Detroit Lions, and in the ensuing gun battle, you killed Stinger, the scouts' leader. Later, you learned that the girl, Kate Norton, was the sole survivor of a Kansas City colony, which had been attacked and wiped out by the Detroit Lions. The Lions' leader, who calls himself Mad Dog Michigan, had taken a liking to her and spared her life. Mad Dog was once a high-ranking AVOC agent who had escaped from Pontiac Deep Pen near Detroit, and he and his gang, most of whom were also AVOC escapees, were heading for the Fort Hood Military Reserve near Killeen, Texas, the largest armory in the whole of the United States. There, he hoped to find enough weapons to equip the other AVOC clans, who were now in control of cities all along the eastern seaboard. Kate had managed to steal a motorcycle and escape from their camp, but Mad Dog was determined to get her back. He sent his brother, Stinger, and a handful of his best scouts to track her down, and they had finally caught up with her at Sherman. When Mad Dog learned that you had killed his brother, he vowed to get even with you at any price. He abandoned his plans to loot Fort Hood and embark instead on a relentless pursuit of your colony as it crossed the sun-scorched wastelands of Texas. The journey to Big Spring was fraught with great danger, and yet, in spite of the many perils you faced, or perhaps because of them, you felt yourself falling in love with Kate. Moreover, you sensed that she was becoming increasingly fond of you. Sadly, the convoy was only a few miles from Big Spring when disaster struck. The land surrounding the settlement was controlled by a gang of bikers, a renegade clan named the Mavericks, who had been the bane of the Big Spring colony for many months. As the convoy drew nearer to its destination, the Mavericks launched an attack, and in the running battle that ensued, they captured and abducted Kate. The convoy entered the fortified gates of Big Spring to a rapturous welcome from the colonists of that settlement. But for you, the mood of celebration was soured by the vivid memory of Kate's abduction. You vowed to rescue her, and from that moment on, every waking minute of every day at Big Spring was spent thinking about little else. By chance, it transpired that the leader of the Mavericks, a blonde-haired murderer called Amex Gold, was a former AVOC agent who had served under Mad Dog, Michigan before the day. He offered to join forces with the Lions, and as a gesture of his loyalty to his former commander, he returned Kate to him. Together, the Lions and the Mavericks launched a hasty attack on Big Spring. Yet, although they outnumbered the colony by more than 3 to 1, they were unable to breach the settlement's fortified perimeter wall, and were repelled with heavy losses. On the day after the attack, Pop Ewell discovered a radio frequency that the clansmen were using, and was able to eavesdrop on their communications. He learned that Mad Dog had ordered another AVOC clan, the Saints, who were based in New Orleans, to come to reinforce his command. They were expected to arrive within the week. He also overheard Mad Dog arrange a meeting with Meek and Mike, the leader of the Angelinos, a gang who controlled the city of San Angelo. He wanted him as an ally and was prepared to offer guns and ammunition in return for his help in destroying the Big Spring colony. 2 days later, Mad Dog, Michigan set off for San Angelo at the head of a motorcycle pack 200 riders strong. Those few clansmen who remained with Amex Gold tried all manner of tricks to convince the colony that the Mavericks and the Lions still surrounded Big Spring in strength, but to no avail. The senior members of the newly enlarged colony convened a meeting at which it was decided that, with the clansmen now at their weakest, and with the appearance of the New Orleans gang expected at any time, a breakout had to be attempted without delay. There was only one way for the colony to reach Tucson overland, and it was to follow the remains of Interstate Freeway 10 through the arid mountainous territory of western Texas. Precisely halfway between Big Spring and Tucson is the city of El Paso. To reach the city in one piece became the convoy's goal, for it lay at the end of a long and tortuous stretch of mountain highway, undoubtedly one of the toughest you will have to face on your journey to California. Under cover of darkness, the convoy escaped from Big Spring and sped westwards. Now your vow to rescue Kate could at last be attempted, and at the first opportunity, you told the colony of your plans. Reluctantly, they let you leave the convoy and go to San Angelo, where you intended to infiltrate a meeting between the Lions and Angelinos in the hope of finding Kate there. Your skill and daring were rewarded. You were able to locate and rescue Kate from under the very noses of the clan leaders. During your escape from their city, you killed Mekong Mike, the Angelinos leader, and stole a map from Mad Dog, Michigan. Later, you discovered that this map contained vital details of an AVOC operation to take over the whole of the United States. As you escaped westwards from San Angelo, you encountered 3 soldiers, survivors from a World Defense League outpost in southern Texas, who were also heading for El Paso, where the remnants of their command group were stationed. You joined them, and together you made a rendezvous with the convoy at the entrance to the only passable road through the Apache Mountains. A fierce battle was raging along this pass between the Mavericks and a renegade clan of Mexicans who had crossed the border in search of food and supplies. The convoy was forced to run the gauntlet of their gunfire before finally reaching its goal. Upon entering the city, you receive a warm welcome from the WDL command group, who are defending the military reserve of Fort Bliss. They celebrated your arrival for several days until the victorious mood was soured by the appearance of Mad Dog, Michigan, and an army of clansmen over 1,000 strong. He had persuaded the Mexicans to join the Lions, the Mavericks, and the Saints, all of whom were now united to his cause. The situation was desperate. Faced by overwhelming odds, the WDL command tried to negotiate with Mad Dog, but rejected their attempts with disdain. He sent a reply to the command leader, Captain Frankland, in which he reaffirmed his vow to avenge his brother's death. His aims were to leave El Paso alive. He set up headquarters in Ciudad. A clan convoy of trucks was leaving Zaragoza, bound for Mad Dog's headquarters in Ciudad Juarez. On board were enough high explosives to blow Fort Bliss, and everyone in it to sightless atoms. Something had to be done to prevent Mad Dog from using these explosives. Out of desperation was born a daring plan to save the lives of the colony and disrupt the enemy just long enough for you all to break out of El Paso. The plan is to destroy the explosive as soon as they reach Ciudad Juarez, to prevent Mad Dog Michigan from using them against the colony. It is a dangerous and potentially suicidal mission, too difficult for one man alone, so Captain Frankland offers to lead the mission and calls for 3 volunteers to accompany him. WDL Sergeant Haskell and WDL Marine Knott accept the challenge, but no one else steps forward, ready to fill the remaining place. The future of the colony hinges on the success of this mission, and with this thought paramount in your mind, you summon up the courage to volunteer as the 4th member of the team. So for the game rules, they're the same as before in the previous 2 books, with the endurance points for our HP, the combat skill for melee combat, and sometimes ranged weapons are used in some situations inside the text with different choices. We're going to use D10 instead of the random number table, and every combat skill endurance stats are carried over from the previous book. Regarding the homebrew rules for this book, they're the same as before as well. If we're taking a choice that leads to death, we're going to take a previous choice and take another route. If it fails, we're going to take another one until there's no other option available to go through. If we die in a fight, we're going to take the evade action. If there's none, we're going to go back to a previous choice, and if it's not possible, we're simply going to go through the fight or the other obstacles to continue playing the book, so that we're not playing this tomorrow morning. For the 3rd book, we got 4 points to attribute, to allocate rather, to different skills. So if I remember correctly, I put 3 in driving to get 6 now, and 1 in shooting to get to 5, since most of the time, actually if I recall correctly, the first death, well actually the 2 deaths of the previous book were connected to the same thing, and it was a driving skill test. And if I recall correctly, we had problem with driving as well in the first book, but stealth was a major problem as well, since with all the gear that we're carrying and the different guns, it's kind of a dumb stat, but it's really useful in the book. So that's why those choices were made. But if anyone had any other idea, we can try to shift that around, if you will. For the equipment, they're the same objects that are available at the start, but what we had before carry over as well. We had 2 spaces, if I remember correctly, so I took a new rope and an extra meal. Sadly, we won't have our flexible saw anymore since it broke in the last book, and I don't really see what to kick out. A toolkit sounds useful. A fire blanket, I'm kind of holding hope that it will be useful in the desert at some point. So that's what it is. For the ammunition, those carry over as well. Don't have much space left anyway, and lots of 9mm rounds for the machine pistol, which so far has proven itself to be the best gun to use because of its burst capability over the other guns that don't have it. The medikit, so we start with an extra 2 and a dice roll for the number of medkit units, but we were almost full last time, so makes it just sense to be full again with the 2 extra anyway. Water, we're always starting full as well, so that's what we have. And the other things that are carried over are melee weapons, a fire axe and a meat cleaver +3, which is way better than we get at the start, or we had the previous books until we got those 2 weapons. Usually melee weapons are +2 combat skill. And the other objects that we had they'll carry over, so the first meal that was never used last book, the toolkit that we found with the foil blanket, a Geiger counter that was useful in the first book once, so we never know, a solar torch for lighting ourselves instead of standard torch and matches, gold nugget, still hopeful that we can use it to give it to someone and pay him out for one reason or another. CB radio given by Puppy Will in the first book, proven useful as well, and a telescope found on a spy in the first book also, I think, if I remember correctly. I think we have the telescope since a long time actually. It replaces the binoculars that we could add at the start. So that's pretty much it for the character creation. Close combat skill 18 and endurance 29 that are carried over, like I said before. So there we go. Let's start with the section 1 of Freeway Warrior book number 3, the Omega Zone. Your decision to join Captain Frankland's group provokes a mixed reaction among the original members of Dallas Colony 1. They put on a brave face and applaud your courage, outwardly proud that one of their number will be part of this team. But they cannot mask their fear for you, not knowing what awaits you beyond the perimeter wall of the Fort Bliss stronghold. Using maps and equipment salvaged from the military reservation and adjoining airport, Captain Frankland and Sergeant Haskell formulate a plan of action. At midnight, the team will leave the stronghold and attempt to slip unseen through the surrounding enemy cordon. After that, the El Paso City ruins should provide enough cover for you to avoid the clan patrols as you make your way south towards the Rio Grande, where only one bridge across the river still stands, the Stenston Street toll bridge. The approaches are known to be guarded, but the bridge itself is rarely occupied. The plan is to cross the river by this bridge, using a service walkway that runs directly beneath its central span. On the Mexican side of the bridge lies Ciudad Juarez, the sprawling derelict shanty town where Mad Dog Michigan, in deference to Santiago, the Mexican clan leader, has based his operations. A convoy of explosives is due to arrive there at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. The team must locate and destroy the trucks and their deadly cargoes as quickly as possible, using contact mines. The resulting explosions are sure to cause panic among the clansmen surrounding Fort Bliss. They will also provide a clear signal to the colony who will, by then, be ready to exploit the confusion and break through the cordon. Once clear, they are to follow Interstate 10, firstly north towards Las Cruces, and then west towards your intended destination, City of Tucson. For you, the real danger begins as soon as the mission is accomplished. Once the explosives have been destroyed, the team must hijack a clan vehicle and escape from Ciudad Juarez as best as it can. If all goes to plan, you will rejoin the colony in the New Mexican town of Deming, 100 miles northwest of El Paso, at noon the following day. If the team fails to make this rendezvous, the colony will continue regardless. A few hours before midnight pass quickly. The colony uses the cover of darkness to prepare their vehicles for the breakout. Kate will be driving your roadster, and you use this as an excuse to spend what little time there is left before the mission with her, supposedly briefing her on the quirks and idiosyncrasies of the car. Everyone is aware that she already knows everything there is to know about your car, but no one is insensitive enough to make any comment. At 5 minutes to midnight, Captain Frankland calls you to join the team. You take good care of my car, here, you whisper as reluctantly you free yourself from Kate's tender embrace. Only if you promise to take good care of yourself, she replies, her voice wavering as she tries to control the fear that is simultaneously tightening her throat and churning her stomach. Don't worry, Kate. I've got a feeling that everything's gonna work out just fine. You'll see. Tomorrow we'll be together again in Deming. I hope so, Carl, she says. I dearly hope so. The three other members of the sabotage team are waiting for you at an earth rampart that forms part of the southern perimeter wall. In a hushed voice, Captain Frankland gives us final briefing, while you join with the others in applying camouflage blacking to your face and taping your weapons and equipment to muffle any noise. 500 yards away, across a rubble-strewn no-man's land, Clan snipers are entrenched behind a makeshift barricade of old cars and other debris. Their rifles are trained on Fort Bliss, and in the past they have been all too eager to use them whenever a target has presented itself. Crossing this zone will be perilous in the extreme, and in order to minimize the risk of the mission failing there, the captain proposes that the team split into pairs and cross the zone at 2 separate locations. Each pair is to make its way through the enemy cordon and the city beyond and then regroup at the Stanton Street toll bridge at 1 a.m. Precisely. You synchronize watches before joining with your chosen partner, Marine Knott, in getting ready to go. There are 2 routes open to you. The most direct path will take you south through the heart of El Paso, where the enemy are most numerous, or you can attempt a detour around the northern edge of the city before you try to reach the bridge, a longer but possibly less dangerous route. So here are our 2 options: going south directly towards the city, or going west on a detour around the city. No east option though. So here we are, El Paso, Ciudad Juarez. If we're to go left, it's east as well. And we are only with Marine Knott. We didn't get the captain or the sergeant. So I think it will be wiser to take the detour and the easier route. Unless we give the easier route to the captain, so that the better guys have an easier time. Yeah, we should try that actually. Give a better hope of success by giving the easier route to the most veteran people here. So let's go directly to the city. Okay, Carl, says the captain. Me and the sergeant will take the scenic route. We'll go first. Give us time to clear the zone, then wait 5 minutes before you and Knott make your move. That clear? No problem, you reply confidently. We'll meet up at the toll bridge at 0100 hours. With bated breath, you watch as the 2 soldiers slip over the perimeter wall and crawl away from the safety of Fort Bliss. Expertly, they merge with the broken wasteland so that you soon find it impossible to track their path, which leads to an elevated section of Highway 54. 15 minutes later, all is still as quiet as the grave. You are sure that they have made it across the zone by now, and so you motion to Marine Knott to follow as you lower yourself headfirst over the rampart and propel yourself across the rocky ground using only your elbows and knees. We're supposed to give them 5 minutes, but we gave them 15. Okay. The faint moonlight serves both to help and hinder your progress as you inch your way towards Montana Avenue, a highway that runs 100 yards in front of and parallel to the Klansman position. Every move you make is slow and deliberate, as though the ground were strewn with eggs, so urgent is the need to prevent dust from betraying your position. Eventually, you reach a shallow ditch bordering the highway, and you use it as cover as you advance towards a group of ruined buildings at the edge of the city. You are less than 20 yards from the ruins when you are frozen by the sound of howling dogs. They are clan bloodhounds, and they have picked up your scent on the warm night air. With your pulse racing, you peer over the edge of the ditch, seeking to catch a clear view of the enemy. You cannot see them, but you can hear them approaching fast. You must act quickly if you are to avoid being caught by the hounds and their handlers. So two options. It's not really two options. If you possess at least one meal's worth of food and wish to use it to delay the hounds, we're not out for long, 2 days at top, so we'll have chance to replenish our supplies in Ciudad Juarez, most probably. So we can use the meal for the dogs, and it worked mightily well in the first book when we ran into the dogs and the, how they call them, the victims, some kind of things like that. So there we go, goodbye meal. Hastily, you flip open your backpack and remove a handful of dried jackrabbit meat. Knott anticipates what you are planning to do and quickly uncorks his canteen and splashes the stringy meat with water. You hurl it in the direction of the hounds and make a dash for the ruins before the dogs catch sight of you attempting to escape. Pick a number from the random number table and add it to your fieldcraft skill total, which is 5. For every meal in excess of 1 that you decide to use, add 3. So that's 7. But we need to reach 10. Well, 9 actually. But another meal will give us 10. Let's go for it. No more food. Oh yeah, it was 10 actually, so we're just fine. Was the total is 10 or more with an extra meal. Nervously, you glance over your shoulder as the howling growls louder. Then you catch sight of them, 2 slack-jawed bloodhounds padding their way across Montana Avenue with 2 clansmen close behind. One of the men is carrying a machine pistol, the other a long-handled flashlight. You are beginning to fear the worst when suddenly both dogs smell the meat and bound towards it. The clansmen curse them, but before they can pull them away from their meat, you and Knott reach the open door of a derelict building and slip inside unseen. Although the interior is dark and dusty, you are able to discover an exit on the far side of the building and escape before the enemy has a chance to catch up. By keeping strictly to the alleys and side streets, you are able to make your way deep into the heart of the city, avoiding the numerous clan patrols. At length, you reach the banks of the Rio Grande and follow the river westwards towards your rendezvous destination. Your early encounters with Mad Dog's men have delayed you, and now as you hurry along the walkways and plazas bordering the river, you are fearful that you will arrive too late to join the others. You are hurrying along a walled sidewalk when you catch sight of the Stanton Steel Toll Bridge, less than 400 yards away. You are confident that it is the right bridge, for it is the only one still intact. A glance at your wristwatch shows that you have less than 10 minutes to spare. "Bridge's over there," Knott says. "It'll only take a few minutes to reach it. If all's well, the captain and Sergeant Haskell should be there already waiting for us." Instead of soon reaching a cluster of old U.S. immigration offices, standing at the approach of the bridge. As Knott predicted, Frankland and Haskell are waiting for you to show, and as you approach the buildings, They called you over to join them. You have already scouted the bridge and determined that there are 4 clan guards on the bridge itself, but none at all on the service walkway that runs beneath it. We've less than an hour before the explosions are due to arrive, says the captain, checking his watch. Is everyone ready? You nod in unison. Okay then, let's go. The captain leads the team through the buildings of the immigration control compound and on towards the iron frame service walkway. The gate of the section is locked, but its rusty padlock is soon dealt with, and stealthily you make your crossing. Below your feet, through the cage-like steel floor of the walkway, the waters of the Rio Grande glint in the moonlight. To your right lie the ruined remains of the Cordova Bridge. Its central span collapsed during the post-Holocaust years, and the debris now forms an island of broken concrete that parts the waters near the middle of the river. The noisy rush of the water passing over this isle obscures the sound of your footfalls as the team hurries across the walkway towards the Mexican side of the border. You are less than 20 yards from the exit gate when the captain signals a halt. Silently he points to the end of the walkway, where 2 clan sentries are standing guard with their backs to the river. We've got to deal with these 2 quickly and quietly, he whispers, as he reaches to his boot and unsheathes his black-bladed combat knife. Pick a number from the random number table. That's 7. If it is 7 or 9. For a few moments, Captain Frankland assesses the situation in silence. Then he turns to Sergeant Haskell and says, "Follow me, Sergeant. I'll take the one on the left, you take the one on the right. Is that understood?" Sergeant Haskell acknowledges the order as he unsheathes his own combat knife. "You do stay here," says Frankland, addressing you and Mary Knott. "As soon as we've dealt with the sentries, you follow us, okay?" You watch expectantly as Frankland and Haskell creep up on the 2 unwary clansmen. Swiftly they silence them, and then they signal to you to help them dispose of the bodies. After the 2 clansmen have been consigned to the Rio Grande, you check your equipment, and then follow the others as they hurry away from the walkway area. Warily you make your way through the streets of Ciudad Juarez, past the derelict stores of the Pronaf shopping center, and on towards the Juarez racetrack. The captain knows this border town well, and he is confident that Mad Dog, Michigan will take delivery of the explosives at the town's famous dog racing track, which he and the Mexican leader, Santiago, are using as their joint headquarters. Its size and defensive position are ideally suited to their needs. From the ruins of a burnt-out cafe located opposite the racetrack's east gate, you act patiently as lookout while the captain considers the team's next course of action. While you are observing the traffic of men entering and leaving the clan headquarters, you must eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points. That's the cost of sending the dogs away, I guess. After considering the situation, Captain Frankland calls the team together in a room at the rear of the derelict cafe. "We've got 2 options, man," he says quietly. "Either we ambush the trucks before they reach the racetrack, or we hit them once they're inside. What do you think, Sergeant?" Haskell shifts uneasily, his face lined with concentration. "I think we're gonna have to blow them once they're inside, sir. We don't know for sure which direction they'll approach from, and considering what they've got on board, I doubt if they'll stop for anything until they're safe inside Michigan's HQ. You're not in agreement, as does Marine Knott. Very well then, if we cannot ambush them on the outside, we'll have to get inside the track and destroy them here. It'll make our chances of escape a whole lot shorter, But I agree with you. I reckon we have no choice. Having decided on a plan of action, Sergeant Haskell distributes the mines, one to each man. Set the timers to 5 minutes, he says, and demonstrates how to do this using his own charge. Their magnetics, so try to fix them to the fuel tank if possible. Failing that, place them as near to the explosives as you can get. Examine the heavy saucer-like device, and then carefully set its clockwork timer according to Haskell's instructions. Finally, you flick across the safety cover so that it protects the detonator button, and slip the mine inside your backpack. So we need to add this as a new backpack item. As the team prepares to leave, the captain briefs you on the plan of attack. Once we're on the inside and the convoy arrives, we've got to place the mines as quickly as possible in case they decide to offload the explosives. From now on, we stick together. Move quickly on my command and no firing unless it's absolutely unavoidable. Also keep your eyes peeled for a suitable escape vehicle. We'll need to find one before we set the mines. We've got only 5 minutes to make our getaway, and I sure don't want to be around when those tracks go up. There'll not be a whole lot left of this place once those mines explode. After the briefing, you follow the captain in single file as he leads the team through a series of interconnecting alleys that takes you to the racetrack's west gate. Most of the clansmen are congregated at the front of the track, around the east gate, making it easy for you to gain access to the track at the rear without being seen. Once inside, you make your way through the now empty canals and administration blocks to a position opposite the track itself. Here you catch a glimpse of your old enemy, Mad Dog Michigan. The leader of the Detroit Lions is standing with a group of Mexicans in front of a large canvas tent pitched in the center of the track. He is shouting and clearly is very angry, although you cannot hear what he is saying above the mechanical din of the generators that are supplying electricity to the track's floodlights. The assortment of vehicles is parked haphazardly around the tents, and at least 50 clansmen, perhaps more, are hovering in the area. They all seem very nervous, many of them glancing repeatedly at their wristwatches as they pace back and forth. You look at your own watch and see that the time is 02:25. No wonder they are so edgy. Convoy is late.
Look over there, Captain,
whispers Knott, pointing at a large 6-wheeled truck that is parked at the side of one of the track, close to the dog traps.
It's an old Defense League 3-tonner, just like the one I used to drive in Brownsville. They ain't fast, but can take a lot of punishment. Might be just what we need if we have to ram our way to here.
Okay, Knott, you convince me, replies the captain. She looks like she's been left unguarded, so you get on over there and get aboard. We'll join you as soon as the mines are set, so you just be sure she's ready to go. You hear?
Yes, sir,
says Knott. He's about to leave the group when the captain grabs him by the arm. Hold it. You'd better give the sergeant your contact mine. Knott fishes the device from his haversack and passes it to Haskell. Then he leaves, and all three of you watch as he makes his way slowly around the perimeter, using what cover he can find. He reaches the truck and climbs aboard. Moments later, there is a tremendous noise, a siren that fills the racetrack with a deafening clangor. The fear that Knott has somehow tripped an alarm vanishes as you realize that the siren is coming from the main entrance. It is announcing the arrival of the explosives convoy. 4 trucks, each one carpeted in a layer of thick red desert dust, roared through the east gate and screeched to a halt. Watch tensely as Mad Dog Michigan and one other, a Mexican whom you assume to be Santiago, run across the vehicles and inspect their cargoes. Having satisfied themselves that all is in order, they proceed to berate the drivers for their poor timekeeping. Patiently the captain watches the proceedings. When Mad Dog and his entourage finally leave the trucks and the cowering drivers and walk towards the main gate, he tells you and Haskell to prepare to move. Gradually, the crowds of clansmen who have gathered around the trucks disperse, and the captain gives the order to go.
Okay, let's do it.
The explosives convoy comprises 4 trucks parked in a line near the center of the racetrack. Sergeant Haskell opts for the 2 rearmost vehicles on which to plant his mines, leaving the first and second trucks for you and the captain to deal with. The captain allows you to choose your target. If you wish to approach the first vehicle, or second choice, we can take the second one. Feel like that this hard to tell. The second vehicle is in the middle-ish, so there might be more cover, but if there are people with the trucks, we're nearer to more people. If we take the first one, it feels like there's less cover, maybe. Let's go with the second truck. Only the center of the racetrack is lit, enabling you to approach a position directly opposite the trucks without being seen. But the minutes pass slowly as you await an opportunity to dash across the track and plant your mines. Sergeant Haskell and the captain seize the first opportunity and make it across the track safely. Once they are hidden beneath the targets, they signal to you to join them as quickly as you can. 4 long minutes tick by before you get the chance to reach the second truck. When it presents itself, you tense yourself like a coiled spring and propel yourself forward, sprinting head down across the track towards your target. You are within a few feet of the vehicle when a Mexican clansman suddenly appears and walks directly in your path. A collision is unavoidable. Add together your stealth and perception skill to a total. So that's 11. Now pick a number from the random number table. 6 minus 2 for the extra items. So we're at 11, 17, minus 2, 15, minus 2 here, 13. Final score is 9 to 13. Damn. One less gun and we were fine, I guess. The force of the impact sends you both reeling to the ground. Desperately, you scramble to your feet, shaking your head in an effort to clear your vision. You regain your footing before the clansman, and immediately you seize the advantage and attack. Yucatan. Combat skill 14. So it's plus 7. Plus 4 straight combat and plus 3 with a melee weapon. And he has 18 endurance. Owing to you having the first strike, ignore any endurance points losses you sustain in the first round of the combat. Good, it's time to roll bad. Clear that jinx out of us. So first round, first fight, 2. As you remember, the random number table in the Freeway Warrior is different from Lone Wolf. Better number doesn't give a better result necessarily. Good dice are usually 0, 9, 7, 5, and 3, I guess. Yeah, the odd numbers except 1. So with a plus 7 combat ratio, a roll of 2 is a good one nonetheless, because the combat ratio is so high. So 1 damage against 6, but we ignore the 1 damage. Round number 2. 7. No damage against 9. And third round. 7 again. No damage. And he's dead. Hurriedly, you hold the clansman's body under the truck and prop him out of sight behind the rear wheels. You then turn your attention to the vehicle ahead. The captain is crouching beneath it, signaling to you to place your contact mine in position. The heavy disc locks itself against the dusty tank, and you uncover its detonator button carefully. Once again the captain signals, and once again you obey his command, this time by pressing the button. As soon as the timing mechanism starts to tick, you close your backpack and make a dash for the truck that Knott has commandeered. Frankland and Haskell join your escape. The captain is running 20 yards ahead of you, and the sergeant who has had to place 2 mines is trailing behind you by about the same distance. Knott sees you in the side mirror and starts the truck. Smoke belches from the exhaust pipe as he revs the reluctant engine. The captain reaches the rear and clambers over the tailgate just as a couple of clansmen notice you running and start shouting wildly. Their screams distract your attention and you fail to notice a metal tool locker that is lying on the ground directly in your path. Pick a number from the random number table. That's 4, and add it to your stealth. 7, so 11 minus 2, 9 minus 2, 7. Your total score is 9 or less. A sharp pain courses up your leg as you scrape your shin and twist your ankle simultaneously. Those 2 endurance points. Our greatest enemy, obstacles on the ground. You fall, but moments later, Sergeant Haskell drags you up to your feet and bundles you towards the truck. As you arrive, the captain reaches down and grabs you by the jacket, and together the 2 men push and pull you unceremoniously over the tailgate. As the sergeant leaps aboard and Knott takes off towards the west gate, you discover that you have lost some items of equipment as a result of your fall. Damn. Erase from your backpack the item you have recorded last on your list. That's the telescope. Also raise 2 medikit units and 6 rounds of ammunition, any caliber. It's quite a lot of useful items lost here. I guess it will be the 7.62. Again, the siren blares from above the east gate, but this time it is an alarm signal. Knott responds by slamming his foot to the floor and steering the lumbering truck towards the west gate. Harsh voices curse, and then gunshots ring out. "Get down!" shouts Captain Frankland as the bullets rip through the thin canvas covering and ricochet off the rear of the driver's cab. Instantly you flatten yourself to the floor, which leaps and shatters against your cheek as the truck rams into the west gate. The rot-infested doors offer little resistance. They are wrenched from their hinges and sent spinning through the air to disintegrate on landing. More shots are fired, but none seem to find their target. You risk a glance over the tailgate to see the racetrack receding into the distance. In the street outside the track, a handful of determined Angelino clansmen are kickstarting their motorcycles in readiness to pursue you. You know just how dangerous these bikers can be, so you raise your gun and rest its barrels on the tailgate, waiting for the clansmen to come within range. Suddenly, the darkness is obliterated by a flash of white light that seems to fill the sky. It fades rapidly, only to be replaced by a huge billowing fireball that towers into the air above the Juarez racetrack. "Go, dirty, go!" shouts Sergeant Haskell excitedly. Then the noise and the shockwave from the explosion overtake the truck. The roar is deafening, and the shock is so violent that it threatens to send the truck carrying off the dusty road. Fortunately, both are quick to pass. As the roar fades through a rumble, you can make out the distant sound of gunfire. "That's coming from across the river," says the captain. "The colony has begun to break out." Comfort is had to find as the truck speeds along the potholed Mexican highway that heads west out of Ciudad Juarez. You brace your feet against the bench seat opposite and hang on to the tailgate with your free hand in an effort to keep the bruising to a minimum, but to little avail. Outside, the mountains rush past on either side, lit by the moon yet softened by the clouds of dust billowing in the truck's wake. Both the captain and the sergeant are searching the truck while you keep a watchful eye open for the clansmen. Your thoughts wander, and you find yourself thinking of the perils that must be facing Kate and the rest of the colony at this moment, as they stage their vital breakout from Fort Bliss. You can only hope and pray that the destruction of Mad Dog's headquarters has secured their escape. A flickering pinprick alerts you to danger. It grows brighter and then divides into 2, 3, and 10, 5. The lights grow larger until you can make out the silhouettes of 5 clan bikers speeding along the highway in hot pursuit. "We've got visitors!" you shout, steadying your gun. But Haskell and Frankland do not respond. They are examining something on the floor near the cab and do not hear your warning. The leading biker is now less than 10 yards away from the tailgate, his headlight shining full in your face. Gunshots crack, and bullets ricochet off the rear as his pillion rider attempts to shoot you dead. If you're using a pistol, machine pistol, rifle, or shotgun. I think we can maybe risk a pistol shot. Yeah, I think we can risk a pistol shot on that. It's on a speeding car against a machine pistol. Aiming from the hip, you bring your G12 machine pistol to bear on the leading biker, your fingers starting to squeeze as the muzzle levels off at a spot 2 feet above the motorcycle's blazing headlight. Pick a number from the random number table. That's 7. Added your shooting skill. 5, 12 total. If it's 8 or more, you're good to go. You fire, and above the roar of the engines, you hear the leading rider scream out in pain. Oh, that's 6 less ammo. Your gunfire has wounded him in the hand, severing 2 fingers. He loses control of his machine, which swerves violently to the left, somersaults, and then bursts into flame. The incident scares the other riders sufficiently for them to pull back to a safe distance. They continue to tail the truck, but at least they are now out of range. Knott's fist banging repeatedly against the inside of the cab draws all 3 of you towards its tiny window. Through the grimy glass, you see him pointing at a town on the road ahead. Its battered buildings illuminated by the truck's headlights. Vado de Piedra, he shouts. Better get ready in case it's Clan Town. If you see any clansmen, you just keep driving. replies Captain Frankland. If the town's empty, find somewhere safe and then stop the truck. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Knott replies. As the dust-blown stores and houses of the derelict Mexican town trail away behind the truck, it becomes obvious that the place is deserted. Vado de Piedra. Okay, we went west here, right? Knott arrives at the same conclusion and decreases speed as he prepares to turn off the main highway. The truck crosses a bridge and swings to the right and stops beside a store that lost its roof long ago. "You're still with us, Captain," said Haskell, staring across the dry riverbed at the group of headlights as the bikers enter town. "Not for long," Frankland growls, his voice harsh and determined. "Spread out and find some cover. We'll take them as they come over the bridge." Quickly, you move away from the truck and scour the darkness, straining your eyes to find a place to hide that also has an unobstructed view of the bridge. You can see only two such places, both far from ideal. One is the gas pump, standing on the forecart of a gas station, directly opposite the bridge. The other is an industrial trash can abandoned at the side of the bridge exit ramp. Yeah, those are both cheap places. But I don't really trust the gas pump. I doubt there's any gas in it though. So the gas pump will be better if there's no gas. Yeah, the XCOM gas stations didn't really made me learn anything, so let's go for the gas pump. I gamble there's no gas in there. You race across to the gas station and slide to a halt behind its solitary pump, just as the first of the bikers reaches the apex of the bridge. Seconds later, the captain's voice bellows the order, "Open fire!" The others obey, strafing the Angelinos as they come speeding off the bridge. Two riders are hit and fall from their machines. A third has his front tire shot out and loses control, crashing into the parapet. But the fourth rider seems to escape injury and comes screaming away from the bridge, heading on a collision course with the gas pump. An icicle of fear stabs your heart as you realize that he does not intend to stop. So we have two options in the skill check there. First option, fire the approaching biker. Second option, dive out of his path. And there's a perception skill total 6 or more. Not. So, well, forget that. So, fire or jump out. Can a gas pump withstand a motorcycle? I think so. Let's simply fire. Hurriedly, you raise your gun and take aim at the approaching rider. He's less than 10 yards away when you shoot your first round of fire. Pick a number from the random number table. 3. Add it to your shooting skill. 5, so that's 8. Total score is 9 or less. Your gunfire is accurate. It hits the biker in the head, but it does not divert his machine. The fact is the biker is already dead, killed by a ricocheting bullet as he sped over the bridge. He slumped forward over the handlebars in a racing pose. His right hand locked in the throttle and his weight balanced to keep his machine upright and fixed in a straight line. In desperation, you scramble to your feet to throw yourself out of the path of the bike, but you have left it too late. With a fearful crash, the motorcycle plows into the gas pump and how can it explode? There's still gas in there. In a ball of bright flame, the last thing you see is a blinding yellow flash as you're engulfed by the blazing inferno. Death is instantaneous by an imaginary gas pump explosion. Tragically, your life and your mission in here in Mexico. So, alright, let's go back and take the other option, which is dive out of its path. That's ridiculous. Anyway, frantically, you scramble to your feet and throw yourself out of the path of the oncoming bikers. He guns his machine maniacally straight at the gas pump. And now he's alive. Ah, no, they mean he gunned his machine. Okay, yeah, never mind. Pick a number from the random number table. That's 6. And add stealth. So 13, minus 2, 11, minus 2, 9. If it's 7 or more. You hit the ground with a jolt that leaves you breathless. Moments later, you hear a dull thud and a screech of buckled metal as the motorcycle clips the gas pump and crashes down on its side. You look up in time to see it rolling over and over, and then with a loud bang, it slams into the gas station wall. That's what was supposed to happen. It didn't explode. That's so stupid. Okay. You look up in time to see it rolling over and over, and then with a loud bang, it slams into the gas station wall. Cautiously, you get to your feet and approach the tangled, smoking wreckage with your gun poised. You're still very wary of this maniacal rider, even though the chances of his surviving such a terrible crash must be slim indeed. As you expected, the rider is dead. A close examination of his broken body, however, reveals that he was dead before his machine hit the ground. He was killed as he sped over the bridge by a ricocheting bullet, and his body, slumped over the handlebars, kept his machine balanced in an upright and fixed line. Thinking of how close you came to death makes you break out in a cold sweat. Uneasily, you wipe your forehead with the back of your trembling hand as you turn and walk away from the dead clansman and his shattered bike. Captain Frankland orders everyone back to the truck. This ain't the last we've seen of Mad Dog's men, he warns, looking to the east in the direction of Ciudad Juarez. We'd best keep moving while we're ahead. We've made good progress, but we've still got about 100 miles to cover before we reach Deming. He climbs into the cab beside Marine Knott, while you and the surgeon settle yourself in the rear and try to make yourselves comfortable. You leave the town heading north, following the remains of a highway that promises to take you back across the border and on to your rendezvous with the colony. A few miles beyond the town, the highway crosses a lake by means of a narrow causeway. The first few rays of the dawn sun are lightening the eastern sky, and as you stare across the lonely landscape, find yourself thinking of Kate and the colony. If all goes well, we'll reach Deming a few hours before noon, says Haskell, studying a map by the light of a tiny bulb in a wire cage bolted to the rear of the cab. And he slips the map inside his combat jacket, switches off the light, and curls up on the floor to sleep. You're now feeling very tired, so you decide to follow Haskell's example and try, despite the rough ride, to get a few hours much needed rest. Before you sleep, you must eat a meal, or lose 3 endurance points. Our meals in the dog's stomach. Sleep deeply, but not for very long. The truck comes to a stop barely an hour after you close your eyes, and you're woken by the sudden lack of movement.
Where are we?
You ask, shielding your blurry eyes from the glare of the early morning sunlight. About a mile from the border, says the captain, as he pulls open the tailgate latch and lets the heavy section swing down noisily. There's trouble up ahead. You two had better take a look for yourselves. You and Sergeant Haskell stretch your aching limbs, then ease yourselves down from the truck to take a look at your surroundings. You have stopped on a boulder-strewn highway that descends towards a town occupying a narrow mountain pass. North, beyond the sun-bleached buildings, the peaks of the Florida mountains dominate the skyline. To the west of the town, another highway branches away at a junction that is marked with a battered road sign. Weren't we on the road to Columbus? If you possess a pair of binoculars or a telescope, we just lost it. So, no. A barricade of ragged autos has been strung out in a continuous line across the highway at the entrance to the town. Beyond this wall of buckled hulks, you see that the town is clan-held. More than a dozen motorcycles are parked on either side of the main street, where 2 or 3 clansmen are asleep in the shade. Why are they so interested in holding this godforsaken place? You ponder aloud. Tragically, it's important, replies the captain. It controls the only cross-border highway through the mountains into New Mexico. The captain asks for Sergeant Haskell's map, and after studying it, he says, "The town's called Columbus. If we're gonna reach Deming on time, we'll have to smash our way through the roadblock. Otherwise, we face a long detour on Highway 9, the Mimbres Road. If we go that way, we'll have to try and link up with the convoy someplace else. Someplace further west, like Lordsburg or St. Simon. Either way, it's damn risky." Because of the risks involved, the captain puts the decision to the vote. He and Knott opt to take a detour, while Sergeant Haskell favors the direct approach. He votes to crash the roadblock while the clansmen are off their guard. The others wait to hear your choice. Really sounds a very big detour. Unless they mean going here. It sounds like we're just going to up through Highway 9. Lordsburg is here. St. Simon there. Sounds way safer to make the detour. And doesn't seem like too much of a big detour. Your vote carries the decision to detour Columbus by a majority of 3-1. Okay, man, that decides it, says Captain Frankland. We avoid Columbus and take a detour on Highway 9.
"I think we'd better get going right away, sir," says Knott uneasily. "Looks like more mad boys are heading this way."
Points along the highway at a ominous column of dust that is approaching from the south. "Hell," spits Frankland. "That's all we need. Mount up, man. We ain't got the time to party with those punks." Marine Knott takes the wheel with the captain riding beside him in the cab. Meanwhile, you and the surgeon climb in the back and take up firing positions at the tailgate. As the truck starts to move, you watch anxiously as the column of dust draws closer. In order to reach Highway 9, you have to pass within 100 yards of an adobe shack. It looks no different in style or state to a dozen others dotted around the town. But unbeknown to you, this one is used as an outpost by the Mexicans who occupy Columbus. As the truck approaches, 3 clan lookouts emerge from the side door and walk slowly across the highway. Their leader, a fat-bellied renegade with gray hair and a drooping mustache, stops in the middle and raises a pudgy hand. Knott ignores his signal to stop. Instead, he steps on the gas and sends the 3 clansmen diving to avoid the truck. You roar past, but they are quick to recover and immediately they start firing at the tailgate. Pick a number from the random number table. That's 5. It is 428. Bullets ricochet from the rear and whistle past on every side, forcing you to duck behind the tailgate for cover. Your swift reflexes save you from being hit. As you lower your head, you glimpse the clan leader running into the middle of the highway, his hand outstretched to pick up a walkie-talkie that must have dropped from his pocket. As you cower behind a tailgate, you suddenly realize that he could attempt to radio another clan outpost, perhaps one in Mimbres, or one further along the highway, and forewarn them of your arrival. You wish to attempt to shoot a clansman to prevent him from using the radio? Or if you have sufficient ammunition, yeah, well, we either shoot or don't. I think it's a good idea to shoot, actually. We have quite enough ammo anyway. With the clansman's position fixed in your mind, you spring up from behind the tailgate and raise your gun to fire. The truck is bumping along the highway, making it impossible to take accurate aim. But for an instant, he fills your sights. Immediately, you pull the trigger. Your shooting proves deadly accurate. The bullet hits him in the forehead, killing him before he can transmit his radio message. Sounds like a rifle shot there. So let's remove one round of rifle. Haskell looks at you and grins. He is clearly impressed by your marksmanship. He is about to congratulate you when the truck decelerates. When it stops, Captain Frankland leaves the cab and comes around to the back to check that you are both alright. We're fine, you reply. Bruised, but otherwise just fine. You help the captain climb over the tailgate, and as soon as he's aboard, Knott restarts the engine and you continue on your journey west along Highway 9. It takes less than 20 minutes to reach the tiny mountain town of Mimbres, but you find no welcome awaiting you there. Went there over the border to Mimbres here. The place is deserted, its buildings, all save two derelict stores at its center, have long since collapsed. There is nothing to be gained by stopping here. So Captain Frankland orders Knott to continue without slowing. Beyond Mimbres, the highway begins a steady climb into the Cheddar Mountains. You stay alert, anticipating clan contact at any time, but the rocky landscape seems devoid of life. The temperature rises with the sun, and when you see the town of Achita, perched near the western edge of a wide box canyon, all four of you are beginning to feel the ill effects of dehydration and salt deficiency. You are approaching Achita. Over here. When Knott calls the captain to the cab window. The truck's fuel gauge was registering full when you left Ciudad Juarez, but the needle has now slipped to below the quarter mark, and he fears that there may not be enough gasoline left to reach Lordsburg. Achita looks as empty as Mimbres, so Captain Frankland orders him to stop there to search for some fuel. As you reach a crossroads in the center of the town, Knott stops the truck at a gas station that was once part of a shopping mart. You disembark and Sergeant Haskell quickly discovers the reason for the truck's poor fuel consumption. There are 3 bullet holes in the petrol tank. Two options: we can either help the sergeant fix the damaged tank, or help Frankland and Knott search the gas station for some fuel. We are really good at fieldcraft. Actually, we were before we put points in stealth and driving. And our perception is kind of low compared to the other skills. So we might be better off helping Sergeant fix the damaged tank. Using rubber sealant, insulation tape, and strips of metal cut from an old oil can, you help the Sergeant to patch up the 3 bullet holes. Meanwhile, the others are able to siphon nearly 2 gallons of gasoline from the station's storage tanks, which is then carefully transferred to the truck's newly repaired fuel tank. Captain Frankland is disappointed at having found so little fuel, but Knott assures him that it should be sufficient to enable you to reach Lordsburg and rendezvous with the colony. Once the refueling is completed, you climb aboard and set off in a new direction, north, towards a junction with Interstate Freeway 10. The temperature continues to rise as the truck makes its way along the remains of Highway 81, across the vast and spectacular landscape. It is nearly noon when you reach a winding, steep-sided canyon, part of the Great Continental Divide. Its multi-banded strata of rocks provide a dramatic splash of color in this sun-bleached mountain wasteland. The colony should be in dimming about now, says the captain, glancing at his wristwatch. When we reach the interstate, we'll stop and wait for them there. No sense traveling in this heat if we can help it. He has barely finished talking when there's a loud bang. The floor shatters, and then the engine starts to cough and splutter. Knott groans loudly, fearing the worst, and desperately pumps the gas pedal to keep the engine from stalling. For half a mile, the truck lurches along the highway like a drunken kangaroo, until the engine utters its last cough and stops. An examination of the engine soon reveals the problem: a cracked electronic ignition unit. Knott recalls seeing one of these lying on a workbench back at the Achita gas station, and curses himself for not having taken it. At least a replacement part is within reach. Knott volunteers to return to the town 10 miles away, and ask for someone to accompany him. Two options: we can either go back to Achita with Mary Knott, or stay with the truck. Seems dangerous, but I think Mary Knott will need us as our partner in the first part of the book, so should stay with him. It will be simply logical. It takes you 3 hours to walk the 10 miles back to Achita, during which time you must take a drink or lose 3 endurance points. Drinking's fine, we still have a lot of those. As you enter the town, you see a clan motorcycle parked in front of the gas station. 2 men are crouched nearby, studying tracks in the dust made by the truck's tires. Can't let these two get away, says Knott, as they approach the station stealthily. If they bring the others down on us before we fix the truck, we'll be lucky to see the colony again. The 2 men are so interested in the tracks that they fail to notice you run across the street and take cover behind the gas station wall. Then the first clansman straightens himself and begins to walk towards the bike, while his partner remains kneeling on the ground, sifting through the remnants of the materials Haskell used to repair the truck's gas tank.
Gotta take them out now, and we gotta take them out quietly,
whispers Knott as he unsheathes his combat knife.
There may be others in the neighborhood. It's too risky to start shooting.
The second clansman is now rising to his feet. Knott pats your forearm and motions you to move with him as he gets ready to launch the ambush. We can either attack the clansman who is standing beside a motorcycle, or attack the clansman who is rising to his feet. Let's take the harder one and leave the easier one to Mary Knott. You move in quickly toward the biker, hoping that the speed of your attack will catch him off guard, but he sees you coming out of the corner of his eye. And as you leap over his machine and launch your first blow, he avoids it by rolling aside. He rises to his feet, and you see the glint of polished steel in his right hand. Firefox. Close combat skill 16. So it's a +2/+5 combat ratio. And this Firefox guy has 24 endurance points. First round. 4. That's usually a bad roll. 2 damage against 5. 9. Way better. 1 damage against 6. 9 again. So 1 against 6. 4 again. 2 versus 5. And that should be the last round. 2. 1 damage against 6. Dead, but we lost 7 endurance points in the fight. I think we should use 2 med kit. To bring us back to 20 endurance points. As soon as both clansmen have been defeated, you and Knott search their bodies and the saddlebags of their motorcycle and discover the following items. A pistol with 4 rounds of 9mm ammunition. A shotgun with 2 rounds of 12 gauge. Take them just in case, even if we can't have the shotgun. A knife, useless. Hammer, useless. 3 rounds of 12 gauge. We have too many. 18 rounds of 9mm. Okay, so let's remove the 12 gauge. So we can only take 12 of those. Enough food for 3 meals. We don't have the contact mine anymore. Can take 2 meals. Oh, a third one in the backpack here instead of the telescope we lost. Enough water for 4 drinks. Let's fill the water canteen. Enough water, purification tablets, bandages, painkillers, and antiseptics for 4 medikit unit. Oh, nice. We'll use 2 of the 4 to bring our endurance points back to 26. Binoculars. Oh, well. Let's remove 1 meal for the binoculars. A compass and signal flare. We're fine with this. If you wish to keep blah blah blah, you eye the bodies before entering the gas station to look for the spare ignition unit. The ignition unit is lying on a workbench exactly where Knott saw it when he first searched this section of the gas station. He examines it carefully and begins to smile. "This do the job for sure," he says, and slips the unit into the pocket of his combat jacket. The thought of having to walk back to the truck in the blistering afternoon sun fills you both with dread. Then you remember the clansman motorcycle, and you too begin to smile. Using the bike, it takes you little more than 15 minutes to cover the 10 miles of open road between Achita and the truck. It is an exhilarating experience, made doubly so when as you approach the truck, Haskell and Frankland mistake you for clan scouts and open fire at you with their machine pistols. Haha, yeah, right. Pick a random number table. 0. Add it to your driving skill total, which is 6. If it's 4 or 7. At first, you are shocked that Captain Frankland and Sergeant Haskell are firing at you. But as the first wave of bullets kicks up the dust on the highway, your natural instinct for self-preservation takes over. The only cover is a shallow gully that runs alongside the highway, and immediately you steer towards it. Another burst of fire follows you. This time the bullets strike home, slamming into the front of the motorcycle and destroying the tire. As you leave the highway, you lose control of the machine, and the last thing you are aware of is the bars twisting in your hands. Lose 4 endurance points. Damn. When you regain consciousness, you are lying in the back of the truck with the captain and the surgeon standing over you. Your head aches viciously, but apart from a slight concussion and a massive bruise on the left side of your skull, your body has survived a crash with little injury. Marine Knott survived the crash without suffering any harm and has been busy fitting the ignition unit to the truck. Now that the others are sure that you are alright, they check one last time that the engine is running smoothly and then continue north along Highway 11. And no sorries. It is not long before Interstate 10 appears on the horizon, its surface glowing warmly orange in the light of the setting sun. Are we a bit too late though? When you reach the junction, Knott drives onto the freeway and brings the truck to a halt to allow Captain Frankland to inspect the surface. The tire tracks of several heavy vehicles are clearly visible in the dust, indicating that the colony has passed its way sometime in the last 6 hours. The discovery is well received. It confirms that the convoy broke out of El Paso successfully, and it raises your hopes for an early reunion with Kate and the others. 7 miles west of the junction, the remains of a small New Mexican town stands less than a mile from the freeway. A set of fresh tire tracks veers away from the freeway and heads towards the town. The tracks are quite distinctive and you recognize them at once. They were made by the tires that are fitted to your roadster. We can either ask Captain Frankland to follow the tire tracks or say nothing, which is quite strange. Let's follow the tracks. The tracks lead to a drugstore at the center of the town. It looks as if Kate parked your car here and went inside the store, where there are 2 lines of footprints in the dust, running from the street to the front door. The others wait in the truck while you enter the store. Following in Kate's footsteps, you arrive at some empty places on the store's shelves. She was after medical supplies, although she was selective about what she took. Shelves still hold a few medicines and other medical supplies, enough for 2 medikit units. One of them will be used. Because our allies shot at us like dummies. Having satisfied your curiosity, you go back to the truck and tell the others that you have found. Captain Frankland is anxious to reach Lordsburg before dark, so he orders Knott to turn the truck around and head back to Interstate 10. The sun has dipped below the western skyline and an eerie twilight bathes the ruined buildings of Lordsburg as you drive into the town. The tracks show that the convoy stopped here, but it must have been a brief visit, for the town is now deserted. The fatigue of the mission is beginning to catch up with everyone, and all of you are having difficulty staying awake. The captain decides to camp here overnight and follow the convoy's trail at first light. A place to sleep is chosen at random among the stores and offices that line the main street, and the truck is parked in an adjacent alley. You enter to discover that your overnight accommodation was once a video arcade. Scores of video machines line the aisles, standing side by side like tombstones in an electronic cemetery. Their screens are blank, but their titles are familiar, and they remind you of the hours you spent playing similar machines at home in California before the day. Much to your relief, Sergeant Haskell volunteers to take the first watch. Before you sleep, you must take a drink or lose 3 endurance points. And I'll be back in 2 minutes. Alright, I'm back. You wake with a start, your hand reaching for your gun as you sense instinctively that something is wrong.
Quick, everyone!
This is the surgeon. There's trouble in the way. Within seconds, you're wide awake, taking in every detail of your surroundings, assessing the threat. A column of vehicles is entering the town, their headlights hooded but still visible in the darkness. There are several four-wheeled vehicles, but motorcycles make up the majority. It is a clan convoy. They enter the town and stop in line along the main street. They, too, are following the colony's tracks, which have led them straight to you. An RV draws up alongside the line of vehicles and outsteps a man with hatred blazing in his eyes. A chill touches your heart as you recognize his haunting features. It is Mad Dog Michigan. He screams the command, and immediately the clansmen leave their machines and with torch in hand commence a search of the surrounding buildings.
This way,
Says Captain Frankland, his voice a harsh whisper. You and the others follow him up a flight of stairs that leads to the roof. As you crouch beside the parapet that encircles the roof, you peer carefully through a gap and into the street below. There are clansmen everywhere, running back and forth, their torches probing every shadow. All the same, you are beginning to feel sure that they will miss you when you hear something that sets your pulse racing. Hoarse shouts and whooping screams of delight echo from behind the building. The clansmen have discovered the truck. The news is relayed to Mad Dog Michigan, stirring him to a fearful rage.
they're here, I know it!
He screams demonically.
Find them! Find them! I want them dead!
He paces the main street, shaking his fist at the buildings on either side, demanding that his men fulfill his lust for revenge. They storm the building in which you hide, and at once you begin looking for a way out. The fire escape offers no solution. Its ladder descends to the main street. There is only one way off the roof, and that is to jump to the neighboring building 15 feet away. After jamming the roof door to delay the clansmen for as long as possible, the captain leads the escape. The others throw their guns and equipment across and then make the jump safely. You are making the run up to your jump when you hear a loud burst of gunfire and see the roof door collapse, shut off its hinges. Add together your stealth skill total and your current endurance point score, ignoring any encumbrance penalties you have due to the number of backpack items you possess. Good, we threw our backpack like the others. Good idea. So, stealth skill is 7 minus 2 for the guns. Yeah. So that's 5 plus 25, 30. And we pick a random number table that will be quite useless. 34 if it is 23 or more. You make the jump with a few feet to spare, but barely seconds after landing, a handful of clansmen pour from the roof door and begin to fire the team. Bullets smack into the brickwork and ricochet off the parapet, forcing you to dive for cover. If you have a missile weapon and wish to use it, sure, I guess. You ready yourself and rise to one knee, your gun coming up at the same time in one smooth, fluid motion. A clansman fills your sights and you snatch the trigger, the gun recoils and you see him buckle and fall. Then you scan for another target and find one, but before he can shoot, he falls to a burst of fire from Sergeant Haskell's machine pistol. Inspired by your action, the others join in the firefight and quickly dispatch the remaining clansmen. Then you hear the captain barking the order, "Follow me!" and see Knott and Haskell leaving the wall to run after him. He's heading towards a fire escape ladder on the far side of the roof. You pause just long enough to retrieve your backpack and belt, and then you hurry after them before they disappear. Swiftly you descend a fire escape into the alley below, seconds before a group of clansmen turn the corner and come running towards you. Fortunately, they are without torches, and in their haste they fail to notice the four of you hiding in the shadows as they make their way around to the rear of the building. The moment they have gone, the captain leads you along a covered walkway that ends at a rotunda. Opposite this paved concourse is the entrance to a bus depot, and parked close by is a U.S. Army Jeep containing 2 Klansmen. Judging by the longhorn skull emblazoned on the vehicle's side, they are members of the Texan clan known as the Mavericks.
There's our ticket out of here,
says Captain Frankland. Silently he draws his knife and holds it to his cheek as he asks for a volunteer to help him commandeer the Jeep. Well, it's the turn of the 2 other guys, I guess. Trust them. With bated breath, you watch as Sergeant Haskell and Captain Frankland stalk towards the Jeep. The 2 Mavericks are oblivious of their presence as they circle around silently and creep up on them from behind. A heavy belt-fed machine gun mounted on a column behind the front seats helps to conceal their approach until they are crouching behind the Jeep itself. For a few seconds there is absolute silence, and then you see them leap forward and grapple the unsuspecting Klansmen, striking swiftly and silently. As soon as it is all over, the captain signals to you and Knott to join them. You rush to the Jeep and help the sergeant search the Mavericks' bodies before hiding them in the bus depot. On your return to the vehicle, Captain Frankland offers you the opportunity to drive. It's either me or the captain. Okay, so those are the 2 options. We drive or we let the captain drive. I think we should drive and trust our new driving skills. You twist the ignition key and pop the gas pedal. You feel a surge of relief when you hear the Jeep's sturdy engine growl thoroughly. A flick of a switch brings the headlights to life and then you are off, accelerating along a narrow street opposite the bus depot that leads to the west side of town. Most of Mad Dog's Klansmen are concentrated around the block of buildings where the truck was discovered, but there are some, most notably the Detroit Lion Scouts, who have taken up lookout positions in other parts of the town. You pass 2 or 3 of them on your way through Lordsburg, yet they seem to ignore you. The Jeep, with its clan markings and the darkness, enable you to pass them without challenge. It is not until you begin your approach to the access ramp of Interstate 10 that you encounter any problem. Soon after your truck was found, Mad Dog dispatched a unit of scouts in a pickup to guard the freeway ramp, just in case. It was a smart move. When the scouts see you approaching, they switch on a spotlight mounted on the roof of the pickup above the driver's seat and catch you in its beam. When the radio call confirms that you are not what you seem, they accelerate towards you in an attempt to run you off the road. Pick a number from the random number table and add it to your driving skill. 7 plus 6, 13. If the score is 8 or more, you raise your left hand to shield your eyes from the glare of the spotlight. They're trying to blind you as they approach, but you are more than a match for them. You shout to the others to hold tight, and when they are nearly upon you, you swerve aside, bringing the Jeep to a controlled halt at the edge of the highway. Captain Frankland is the first to recover and quickly mans the heavy machine gun. The pickup completes a spectacular 180-degree turn and comes racing back, but he's waiting for them. They are 30 yards away when he cocks the weapon and opens fire. The heavy caliber rounds riddle the engine and tear the cab to shreds. The truck starts to skid, and then there's a tremendous bang as the fuel tank explodes. As you accelerate onto the freeway, you glance in the driving mirror to see a huge ball of billowing orange flame engulf the remains of the truck and its passengers. You leave behind the blazing wreckage as you speed away from Lordsburg on Interstate 10. You are expecting to be followed yet. As the town slowly vanishes into the light, there is no sign of a clan pursuit. You cover 15 miles, reaching the intersection with Highway 80 when the Jeep runs out of fuel. You let it cruise to the side of the freeway. As soon as you stop, Captain Frankland unhooks a large fuel can that is strapped to the rear of the Jeep and shakes it. "There's about 2 gallons in this," he says, as he flicks open the cap and pours the contents into the Jeep's empty tank. "It's not going to get us very far." As the captain pours the last of the spare gas into the Jeep, suddenly you discover why you were not followed out of Lordsburg. The growl of motorcycle engines can be heard approaching from the south, yet you can see no sign of their headlights in the near darkness that blankets the land. Then you spot a glint of chrome reflecting the pale pre-dawn twilight, and suddenly there is a piercing blue-white glare as 6 black-clad clansmen simultaneously switch on the red lights as they race along Highway 80 towards the intersection. Their machines are drawn up in a perfect wedge formation, giving them the semblance of a giant, fiery arrowhead as they come speeding down the freeway access ramp towards your Jeep. Now as they close in, you see that the riders are wearing black face protectors, which are fitted with infrared lenses, enabling them to see in the dark without the need for artificial light. They're all heavily armed, and the pennants that flutter from the whiplash aerials fixed to their saddles identify them as scouts for the Detroit Lions clan. These scouts are part of a group that were based in Ciudad Juarez. You notice that each machine carries a radio and you realize that they must have been directed by Mad Dog Michigan to intercept you. Several of their closest comrades died at the Juarez racetrack and have sworn to avenge their death by wiping you out. "Get going, Carl!" shouts Captain Frankland as he drops the now empty can and leaps into the Jeep. Start the engine and accelerate straight at the oncoming wedge of bikers. They see you in part formation, firing their pistols at point-blank range as they stream past on either side. Pick up a number from the random number table and add it to your driving and perception skill score. 2 plus 6, 8 plus 4, 12, if your total is 11 or more. A bullet misses your neck by inches and buries itself in the shoulder of Marine Knott, who is beside you in the passenger seat. The force of impact nearly hurls him out of the Jeep, and as he fights to prevent himself from falling, he grabs at your jacket, wrenching your hand off the steering wheel. With a screech of tires, the Jeep veers off the freeway towards the exit ramp. The captain and Sergeant Haskell come to Knott's aid, pulling him back into the vehicle as you regain control of the steering wheel. You find yourself ascending the ramp towards Highway 80. In your driving mirror, you see the Klansmen turning their bikes around. They intend to pursue you. Unable to continue along the freeway, you put your foot to the floor and make a hasty escape heading south along Highway 80. Kind of bad. Cursing your predicament, you gun the Jeep along the mountain highway as fast as you dare. Captain Frankland and Sergeant Haskell are manning the heavy machine gun, ready to use it as soon as the Klansmen appear, while Marine Knott is busy dressing a wound he has sustained to his shoulder. You can see by his expression that he is in pain. However, it is only a flesh wound and he has not lost the use of his arm. Dawn is breaking, and you can see the highway continuing due south, deeper into the mountains, leading you away from all hope of an early rendezvous with the colony. The further you go, the poorer the road surface becomes, until all your skill and concentration are required to avoid crashing. Add together your driving skill total and current endurance point score. So that's 6 plus 25, 31 if it's 19 or more. All the advanced driving skills that you learned from Cotter Jacks, and which you perfected during the month you patrolled the highways around McKinney, pay off now as you negotiate this hazardous section of mountain highway. However, the clansmen are equally proficient rope masters, and they are gaining on you, relentlessly closing the gap. The more you think about your predicament, the more you realize how futile it is to try to outrun them. Even if you were able to defeat all the scouts, Mad Dog Michigan will simply send more and more until his lust for vengeance had finally been sated. Then an idea occurs to you that might just throw him off your trail for good. You are able to convince the enemy that you were dead. You will put an end to their pursuit. You share your thoughts with the others, and they agree with your reasoning. You're right, Carl. We'll have to stage an accident and convince the clansmen that we've all been killed, says Captain Frankland. Soon you reach a part of the mountains where a deep canyon borders the road. Here you bring the jeep to a halt and immediately set about preparing the accident. Push the vehicle to the edge of the road, and then light a rag, which Haskell has stuffed into the gasoline filler pipe. It ignites, and once it is burning, you give the jeep a push, and send it carrying over the edge into the canyon 300 feet below. After the resounding crash, you hear the clansmen approaching, and you quickly take cover behind some boulders. To make it seem more realistic, Marine Knott drops his bloodstained tunic at the edge of the road, before he joins you, seconds before the first clansmen appear on the scene. Classic trick. The sound of the crash brings the clansmen to halt at the side of the mountain road. They dismount from their machines and peel off their leather face masks before taking tentative steps towards the edge of the steep-sided canyon. The sight of the burning wreckage draws evil grins across their cruel faces, and when Knott's bloodstained tunic is found nearby, they laugh and howl like victorious jackals. Convinced that you are dead, their leader radios the news to Mad Dog Michigan. When he finishes the call, he orders his scouts to remount their bikes and follow him back to Lordsburg. Only when you can no longer hear the thunderous growl of their bikes do you leave your hiding place and set off on foot along Highway 80 heading south. It is only an hour after the sun has risen and the temperature is already climbing above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The prospect of spending a whole day walking in the burning desert heat is too dangerous to contemplate seriously. So when you see the town of Rodeo shimmering in the distance, you resolve to set about finding a replacement vehicle the moment you arrive. Oh, we're already at Rodeo. The highway cuts through the center of this empty town, dividing it into two halves of roughly the same size. A derelict furniture store marks the start of the main street, and it is here, in the shade of its awning, that you stop to rest. You must now take a drink, or lose 3 endurance points. Once you have recovered your strength, Captain Frankland and Sergeant Haskell pair up to search one half of the town while you and Knott search the other. You need to find a serviceable vehicle that will carry you as far as Tucson. We'll meet back here in half an hour, says the captain, and offers you the choice of searching the west side or the east side of Rodeo. Let's go east. You follow the main street, examining more than a dozen wrecked autos, but none holds out even the faintest hope of ever being resurrected. Last building in the street is the post office, and by the time you reach it, you are virtually resigned to the fact that your search is in vain. However, Knott wishes to search the building, and as there are still a few minutes left before you must rejoin Frankland and Haskell, you agree to help him. Two options. We can either search the lot at the rear of the post office, or search the post office itself. We're looking for a car, so we'll search the lot at the rear. An old US mail panel truck is the only vehicle in the post office parking lot. Its tires have rotted, its battery is dead, and its engine is so full of dust that it will never work again. However, it still has some gasoline left in its fuel tank. The truck may not carry you anywhere, but you cannot readily abandon its fuel. You look for some means of collecting the gas and discover an empty fuel can lying in the cab. However, you're still faced with the problem of getting the gasoline out of the truck's fuel tank. If you possess a plastic tube, we don't. The only way you know of retrieving gasoline from a fuel tank is by siphoning, and to do this you need a length of tubing. Search the parking lot but can't find nothing that remotely resembles a length of flexible pipe. Then you remember something that Carter taught you when you were learning to drive, and the recollection of it spreads a smile across your face. Using a braided fuel line cut from the carburetor, you are able to siphon more than a gallon of gasoline from the truck's fuel tanks. Once you are sure that you have retrieved as much fuel as possible, you seal the fuel can and call for Mary Knott to join you in the parking lot. If you wish to keep the braided fuel line, mark it as plastic tube on your list of backpack items. Yeah, but instead of what? The first time they're asking for a plastic tube, it won't happen again. Yeah. Well, before when they gave us free items, was useful at some point later on. Is it the time to say adios to the foil blanket? Yeah, sounds like it. Knott emerges from the rear door of the post office. His own search was fruitless, but he is happy that your search of the town was not entirely in vain. He has less equipment than you, and so he offers to carry the heavy fuel can as you walk back to the furniture store to meet Frankland and Haskell. On your return to the main street, you see Sergeant Haskell in the distance, beckoning you over to a used car lot near the middle of Rodeo. You hurry across the highway and enter the lot, which specialized in commercial and recreational vehicles before the day. The faded billboards boast that only the best vehicles are to be found here, but sadly this claim is long out of date. Most of the trucks and RVs are totally wrecked, and nearly all have tires and batteries that perished during the post-Holocaust years. All that is, save one. Captain Frankland has discovered a battered Toyota pickup truck that still has 4 good tires. He has lifted the hood, and as you enter the lot, he asks you to take a closer look at the engine. Apart from a dead battery and lack of fuel, you soon realize that this pickup is in remarkably good condition. "Well, we found some gas," says Knott, raising the fuel can, "so that solves one problem." "That's fine," replies the captain. "But we'll still need some electrical power to get this engine started. If you possess a solar regulator..." We don't. While you're trying to think of an alternative power source, you check inside the truck's cab and discover that it does not have automatic transmission. It has a manual 4-wheel drive system. "I think I may have the answer to our problem," you say, and proceed to explain your plan to the others. "If we can get this truck moving, we might just be able to show start it using the manual gears." The others look skeptical, but they are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially as they can offer no alternative plan. With considerable effort, you manage to manhandle the pickup onto the highway. Knott is the lightest, and so he's chosen to steer the truck, while the others, yourself included, push it as fast as you can. Once it has built up a reasonable speed, Knott engages high gear and releases the clutch pedal in the hope that the electrical power generated by the computerized alternator will be sufficient to spark the engine. The plan is not an instant success, but on the 5th attempt, the power is sufficient to bring the engine coughing and spluttering back to life. Owing to the sheer physical effort required to start the engine in this manner, you must now take a drink. I'll lose 3 endurance points. Starting to be low on water. Nice work, Carl, says Captain Frankland as he climbs into the back of the Toyota. Yeah, well done, says Haskell, echoing the captain's sentiments. I sure went looking forward to oofing all the way to Daxon, I can't tell you. Bolts into the back beside the captain, then extends his right hand to help you aboard. You're reaching out to give respawn when you hear the sharp crack of a gunshot. Haskell raises his hand to his forehead, a look of shocked surprise registering on his strong, angular face. And his eyes roll back to reveal just the whites, and a trickle of blood oozes from a neat hole 2 inches above his nose. He wavers and then falls limply across the tailgate. For an unknown length of time you stare at Haskell's face, oblivious to your surroundings, until the frantic thumping of your heart begins to subside. A sick feeling hits you in waves, and you are unable to move, and you feel yourself being lifted and pulled into the truck by the front of your leather jacket. Captain Frankland is screaming at Knott to drive away as fast as he can. As the back wheels spin and the Toyota begins to accelerate, the horror of witnessing Haskell's death at such close quarters makes you shiver with shock. Lose 3 endurance points. The truck races out of rodeo, and within minutes you are crossing the state border into Arizona. Respectfully, Captain Frankland covers the surgeon's face with his combat jacket, and although your minds are full of unanswered questions, you say nothing to each other until Knott brings the truck to a halt at the edge of a great expanse of mountain timberland, once known as the Coronado National Forest. Must have been a clan sniper, says Frankland, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. I didn't see a thing, did you? You cannot shake your head silently, both deeply saddened by the loss of your brave companion. For Knott, it is a especially bitter blow, for he and Haskell survived the Postolocos years together at the WDL base in Brownsville, Texas. We had better take care of the burial right away, says Frankland, scanning the surrounding landscape. There's no sign of anyone following us on the highway. It should be safe to bury him here. In silence, the 3 of you busy yourself with the grim task of burying Sergeant Haskell's body in the loose shale that borders this part of the highway. When the task is complete, the captain marks his grave with a cross and says a few words in honor of the memory of this brave soldier who died in the course of duty. You and the captain leave Knott to pay his last respects and walk back to the pickup to consider your next course of action. Mad Dog, Michigan is known to have snipers at his disposal, former Havoc assassins who operated under him in the years before the day. If it was one of those professionals who killed Haskell, the chances are that he will not stop until he has finished you all off. We've gotta keep moving before we stay out of range of this assassin, says Captain Frankland as he stares across the landscape. I've had experience of these murderers in the past. They're totally ruthless and totally professional. Then as if answer to his words and your fears, another gunshot echoes across the pine-clad mountains. Pick a number from the random number table. 9. The number is 4 to 9. There is a dull thump, followed by a loud hissing as the sniper's bullet pierces the truck's rear tire, releasing a stream of stale air. Take cover, shouts Frankland, and together you dive towards the pickup and cower behind the passenger door. Knott has heard the shot and Frankland's warning and has hidden himself among the pines that stand close to Haskell's grave. If only we could see his position, says the captain as he unslings his machine pistol and checks the magazine. We'd at least have a fighting chance. This way he can circle around and pick us off at his leisure. There is a second shot and another tire deflates noisily. With your pulse beating like an express train, you reach your gun and prepare for a firefight. Damn, the mirror we had before will be so useful now. Anyway, two options. If you wish to glance over the truck to see if you can locate the sniper's position, or not look. Theoretically, I think we have time to look because he has to reload, most probably. On the other side of the truck, there is another sharp crack, followed by the trailing sound of a rifle shot echoing across the surrounding mountains. Pick a number from the random number table. 1. Damn. Add it to your stealth and perception skills total. So 7 plus 4, 11 plus 1, 12 minus 3. That's 9 minus 2 here. 7. Your score is 12 or less. And there we go. A sudden short-lived pain in your head and a reddening of your vision is all that your sense, as the assassin's full metal jagged around pierces your forehead and passes clean through your skull. Mercifully, that is instantaneous. Your life and your mission end here in Arizona. So then, let's not look. Captain cocks his machine pistol and gets ready to open fire. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can flush this Yankee out, he says vehemently. When I start firing, you see if you can pinpoint where he is. You're not in agreement and get ready to glance around the tailgate the instant the captain opens fire. Let's do it, he says, as he rises above the cover of the truck and squeezes off a burst of automatic fire. The noise of his gun drowns out the sniper's shot, but within a second of him breaking cover, Frankland is hit. With the machine pistol still shattering in his hands, he falls backwards and crashes to the ground. The assassin's bullet lodged deep in his skull. Damn. The shock of Frankland's death, following so closely after Sergeant Haskell's, hits you like an icy shower. Cower behind the truck, shivering with fear, afraid that you will be next. For a terrible moment, the fear consumes you, and all you want to do is run as far away and as fast as you can. Despite Knott's pleas to stay where you are, you scramble to your feet and stumble towards the woods. In your haste, you trip and fall, grazing your hands and knees on the flint-sharp shale. Lose one endurance point. It's really our least problem here. Inadvertently, your fall saves your life. A shot passes over your head a second after you stumble, missing you by a hand's breadth. The imminent danger clears your mind and you race towards the trees with a determination to survive. That encourages you to increase your speed and you pray that you will reach cover before the sniper has a chance to slip another round into the breech of his rifle. Add together your stealth skill total and your current endurance points. That's 7 minus 3, 4 minus 2, 2 plus 21, 23. We could discard backpack items in order to increase our stealth skill apparently. But let's go with 23. If the result is 20 or more, Your stomach lurches when you hear yet another shot echo across the mountains. You flinch as you run, half expecting to feel the pain of impact, but the bullet misses you and lodges itself in the trunk of a pine tree less than 10 yards ahead. You reach the trees and throw yourself down behind a thick pine, breathless with fear and sheer exertion. As you lie there, inwardly weeping, fighting to control the nausea that rises in waves, Marine Knott crawls to your side and tugs at your sleeve.
Stand better chance if we can get deeper into the forest,
he says, his voice betraying the fear that is gnawing at his insides like a voracious rat. You blink your approval and struggle to follow him as he crawls across the tinder dry bed of pine needles and strictly brown vegetation that covers the tall tree's roots. When you can no longer see the highway for trees, you rise to your feet and scurry deeper into the forest. Here the air is heavy and still, and the heat is stifling, but at least the trees protect you from the midday sun. For 2 hours you ascend the pine-clad slopes of the Pedregosa Mountains, wending your way steadily westwards towards peaks that are hidden from sight. So lost here. Throughout your weary trek, you exchange less than a dozen words with Marine Knott. The grief and the shock you feel play on your mind, and no matter how hard you try to shake them, the images of your companion's final moments keep repeating in your mind's eye. Eventually, you come to terms with your sense of bereavement, but you cannot escape the ever-present fear that the sniper is somewhere nearby. By mid-afternoon, you discover a trail that cuts through the scrub, growing in abundance on the higher slopes. The trail is a welcome discovery, for the scrub is twisted and tough, gnarled and deep-rooted, and difficult to climb. You have been following the trail for less than an hour when it starts to ascend very steeply towards a rugged outcrop of rock. Pick a number from the random number table. 0. Add it to your field craft. Just 5. The score is 7 or less. As you begin to climb the steep trail, you fail to notice a wire leg snare designed to trap rabbit or other small game, which has been set near the bottom of the slope. You set it off and the wire tightens around your ankle, cutting deep into the flesh. Lose 2 endurance points. It's really not going well here. After extricating your leg, you notice that the snare is in remarkably good condition, indicating that it has been set sometime within the last 10 days at most. Someone else must be living here in the forest, setting this type of snare to catch fresh food. You tell Knott of your find before proceeding with renewed caution. Slowly you follow the steep trail as it ascends towards the outcrop. Climb is difficult, but your perseverance is rewarded when you reach the top and discover a plateau that commands a breathtaking view of the surrounding mountain timberlands. Then as you scan the horizon, you hear something that is far more exciting than the wondrous view. It is the sound of running water. With high expectations, you and Knott re-enter the forest, determined to investigate the sound. You have covered less than 50 yards when you discover the source, a spring of clear, sparkling water cascading from a crack in the mountainside. Knott is elated by the find and rushes forward to drink his fill. You are more cautious. You control the strong urge to drink and warn your companion of the high possibility that the water is contaminated. If your field craft is more than 4, it's 5. You investigate the ground surrounding the spring and discover that it is lush with green vegetation, mosses and damp earth, imprinted with many animal tracks. There are no signs of carcasses or dead foliage, which will indicate that the spring is contaminated. Now that you are sure that it is safe to do so, you drink from the spring, refill your water canteen, and wash in the cool, clean water. Restore 4 endurance points. You leave the spring and follow the trail as it ascends towards a wooded summit overlooking the plateau. During your climb, you catch sight of Chiricahua Peak, a majestic tree-clad mountain to the north, and you stop for a few minutes to enjoy the view. You are about to press on when you detect something moving among the trees ahead. If you possess binoculars or telescope, you have a new pair of binoculars. Focus your view to see a figure moving among the gnarled grey pine trunks less than 30 yards away. A burdened man, in his mid-40s, is dressed in plaid shirt and patched blue jeans. He is carrying a clutch of dead rabbits in one hand and a small axe in the other. Quietly, you tell Knott exactly what you see, and he replies,
Doesn't sound much like havoc assassin. What do you think we should do, Carl?
2 options. We can call out to the man, or simply stalk him. I think the second option is a good idea, to get a bullet between the eyes or behind the head. Should call out to him, I think. Hey, you up there! You shout in as friendly a voice as you can muster. You try hard not to sound threatening, but the unexpected sound of your voice startles the man. Immediately he dashes away from the trail and runs deeper into the forest. Rather than let him get away, you beckon Knott to follow as you give chase. The man is easy to follow. A trail of freshly broken foliage clearly marks his escape route through the trees. His tracks end at a clearing, where a wide crater-like hollow has been excavated from the rocky soil. Catch a glimpse of him hurrying into the hollow by way of a flight of steps that has been cut out of the earth. As you approach the crater, you notice that one side is constructed entirely from logs and resembles the side of a pine cabin. Frantically, the man bangs his clenched fist on a heavy door in the center of the log wall, screaming to be let in. The door opens, and he falls through it, slamming it shut behind him with a heavy thud. Cautiously, the two of you move towards the steps, your weapons ready and your eyes fixed on the closed door.
Must be a survivor and he's got himself some sort of underground shelter here.
Does not. Having realized by now that you are not tracking the man who is responsible for the murder of your 2 companions.
I think you're right,
you reply, and I guess he's not alone. Someone opened the door. A few yards to the right of the door, you notice an oblong-shaped air vent. You are about to descend the steps and investigate it further, when a single gunshot rings out, and you feel something hit you sharply in the back. A bullet has clipped your backpack. The force of its impact takes your breath away and sends you tumbling to the floor of the crater. Lose 1 endurance point. And erase 1 backpack item from your action chart. Damn. Let's remove the plastic tubing, I think. You curse your will-be assassin, but you are thankful that your equipment has saved you from sustaining a more serious wound.
Damn it,
Rolls Knott as he leaps from the steps and lands at your side.
he's found us.
Together you rise and run towards the door, seeking shelter. Knott bangs his fist on its rough timbers and pleads to be allowed in, but to no avail. The door does not open. We've gotta get inside, you say as you scan the trees beyond the edge of the crater. We're sitting ducks out here. If you possess an HE grenade, we don't. If you possess a tin saw, we don't. That's what it is. Knott produces a crowbar from his backpack and tries to force open the door, but it soon becomes obvious that it cannot be prized open. A closer examination of the air vent reveals that it was once a much larger window that was recently been partially boarded over. Confident that you can gain entry this way, you tell Knott to attack the slats. Within a minute he has made a hole large enough to climb through, and without hesitation you scramble into the shelter through the jagged gap. As your eyes grow accustomed to the gloom, you see that you have gained access to a small, sweet-smelling storeroom. Apart from an area occupied by a wooden door, the walls of the room are lined with shelves on which are stored jars of preserved fruits, canned foodstuffs, and pickled vegetables. On one shelf alone, there is sufficient food for more than 50 meals. If you wish to take some, remember to mark your action chart. Yeah, let's take one more here. I doubt we can carry 50 of them though. Two options: we can either continue to search the room or leave the room via the door. We're trying to be sheltered by those guys here, so should not be stealing from them, I think. Beyond the storeroom, you discover a narrow corridor lit by several low-voltage electric light bulbs mounted in the ceiling. In the glow of their pale, yellowy light, you notice a bolt on the storeroom door. You lock it, hoping to deter the sniper should he try to follow you into the shelter. As you progress along the corridor, you discover 3 doors. The first is to your left, the second is directly opposite the first, and the third lies at the end of the passage, just a few yards ahead. Let's go left. The door is unlocked. Carefully, you lift the latch and push it open, and as the light from the corridor eliminates the darkness within, you see that the room contains 2 bunk beds and a few other pieces of plain pine furniture. Children's toys, lovingly crafted from wood and bone, line the shelves. You are closing the door when you notice a wooden whistle lying on the top of a clothes trunk. Can keep the whistle. Ugh. Not sure it's worth it. Can investigate the door opposite or the one at the end of the corridor. I guess we can look just to be sure to not leave people behind us and be in a kind of pincer attack inside the shelter. Cross to the door opposite and lift the latch. At first it does not move and you assume that it is locked from the inside, but then you notice that it fits poorly in its rough-hewn timber frame and realize that the door is simply sticking. A sharp kick soon cures it. Inside you discover a large bed constructed of pine and covered with a counterpane of rabbit fur. An assortment of male and female clothing hangs from a rail at the foot of the bed, and a handful of faded family photographs stand on a table beside it. You search a cupboard behind the door and discover a solar torch and a screwdriver. Having discovered what lies behind 2 of the doors in this corridor, you leave the room determined to learn what lies behind the third. You approach the door with caution, taking care to tread lightly on the uneven floorboards to avoid making them creak. A small hatch covered by a sliding panel of plywood is positioned in the middle of the door at 8. You guess that it is the spy hole. Place your ear to the door directly below the covered hatch and hear muffled voices in the room beyond. Although you cannot hear what is being said, you can tell that they are very frightened. Gently you lift the latch, only to discover that the door is locked on the inside. Pick a number from the random number table. 4. So the number is 024. The incomprehensible voices continue their mumbling as you ease open the plywood spiral cover. Through the crack you can see the burdened man standing to the far side of a large dimly lit room. He appears to be talking excitedly at a hole in the ground. Accidentally, Knott drops his pistol. The sudden noise makes the burdened man glance at the door. He sees you looking through the spy hole, and fear blanches his face. In the next instant, he dodges aside and disappears from your field of vision. 2 options. You can barge open the door, or shoot open the lock. Damn. Those 2 options are not really friendly. I guess we could try to barge open the door. Seems kind of scary for them, instead of shooting at their house. You call Knott to support your attack as you run towards the door, bracing yourself against the impact. With a numbing jolt, your shoulder connects with the door's palanging timber, and the force splinters its wooden bolt clean in 2. Lose 1 endurance point. The door flies open, and you step back to allow Knott to rush into the room beyond, crouching in combat stance, his pistol held before him ready to fire. No shots are fired, and when you enter the room, you discover that the burdened man has disappeared. You have entered what appears to be the living area of a small, well-equipped, efficiently organized colony. A bellows-operated air pump stands in one corner next to a bookcase filled to bursting with classical literature, disc chips, and VZ cassettes. There are compact industrial batteries to supply power to the ceiling lights, a hand crank generator, a shortwave receiver, video and hi-fi equipment, a wall-mounted cine screen, a computer and VDU, a first aid kit, and cupboards from floor to ceiling filled, no doubt, with other essential luxury items. Opposite the door by which you entered, in the corner of the room, is an open trapdoor. A flight of steps descends into the darkness of another room directly below the one in which you now stand. You point to it, nods his head, and together you approach the steps with your guns at the ready. Damn. We're home invaders now. If your perception skill total is 4 or less, it is. You reach a trapdoor and stare down a flight of wooden steps into the darkness below. Although you cannot see or hear anything, you sense that someone is there. 2 options. Can assure whoever is hiding below that we mean no harm to them, and that all that we wish to do is talk with them. Or we can demand that they throw down their weapons and come out with their hands up. Well, let's go the friendly route, really. Suddenly, a concealed door in the wall behind you bursts open, and in rushes the burdened man with a pistol clenched firmly in his hand. "Drop your guns," he commands. "Drop them now, or the only talking you'll be doing is to the devil." Slowly, you let your gun fall to the floor. Then you raise your hands and turn to face your ambusher. The man enters the room, his pistol poised to shoot should either of you be foolish enough to think you can overpower him. He motions you to move back against the far wall, and when you comply, he calls to his companions who are hiding below the floor.
It's okay, Jack. I got them covered. You can bring everyone up now.
One by one, a family colony of survivors climbs the stairs and files into the room. The first to appear is a man in his mid-30s, lean and clean-shaven, yet bearing a striking resemblance to the man with the gun. He is followed by two women of about the same age, then two children appear, a boy age about 8 and a girl age 11 or so. The women and children leave the room to check security at the front entrance, while the two men, brothers, demand to know who you are and why you are here. It takes you more than an hour to explain the events and circumstances that have led you and your uninvited arrival at the secret mountain retreat. The family of survivalists, which comprises Jack and Steve Lendorf, their wives Marion and Carly, and their children Sissy and Bruce, listen with interest to your story, but they never once lower their guard or their guns. At length you learn that they bought this land and built a shelter 10 years ago, at the time when AVOC was bringing the civilized world to its knees. After the day, this region, owing to its geographical location, was spared the worst of the post-Holocaust blizzards. Its most important resource was fresh water, and as a result of this, the family was able to achieve and maintain its self-sufficiency. They have a radio receiver and they are aware of the existence of other colonies, notably the one at Tucson, and of the situation that exists in California, but they have made no effort to contact other survivors or to join with other groups. Long ago, they made a conscious decision to remain separate from the rest of the world, and they see no reason to change their minds.
Do you know what the Californians call this part of the country? Asked Lindorf offendedly. They call it the Omega Zone. They think of it as a wilderness, useless and uninhabitable, a forbidden area. They've written enough as far as they're concerned. We simply don't exist.
You try to persuade the family to come with you to Tucson, to join up with your colony and make a new start in California, but they dismiss your request out of hand.
I've told you, we can look after ourselves,
retorted Steve, the bearded brother.
All we want is to be left alone.
And his wives appear at the door. The corridor calls out.
There's another one moving around outside.
Steve looks worried. He checks the magazine of his pistol, cocks the slide, and then points it in your direction.
Okay, you two, he says, his voice wavering. You're leaving here right now.
Knott tries to reason with him, telling him that he is sentencing you both to certain death by forcing you outside to face the sniper, but his pleas fall on deaf ears.
No one invited you here,
Steve spits.
If you and that guy outside have got a problem, it's your problem, not ours. We don't want no part of it, is that clear?
Reluctantly, you allow yourselves to be escorted along a corridor that leads to the reinforced front door. The bolts are drawn and the door is thrown open.
Get out,
screams Steve, and you feel his hands thrust against your back, propelling you into the blinding glare of the sunlight. Knott soon follows, and then come your weapons, clattering on the beaten earth floor of the crater. As you stoop to retrieve your guns, the heavy door slams shut. Sound is echoed immediately by another that chills your blood. The sharp crack of a high-velocity rifle. Knott screams and you see his head forced flat against his shoulder by the impact of the sniper's bullet. Crab-like, he staggers sideways, and then for a few brief seconds he seems to defy gravity before finally crashing to the ground. You rush to his side to find dark blood trickling from beneath his hairline. Instinctively, you know that it is already too late to help him. A rush of adrenaline, triggered by the anger and resentment you feel towards Knott's assassin, surges through your veins and spurs you to immediate action. You grab your gun and scurry towards the steps, seeking cover there below the lip of the crater. A second shot rings out and a high-velocity bullet kicks up a column of dust within inches of your face. As you duck, you see the muzzle flash and pinpoint the assassin's position among some foliage, 20 yards away to your left. You know that for as long as you keep your head below ground level, you will be safe from his rifle. You also know that he can move to another position whenever he chooses. Cautiously, you glance over the lip of the crater, looking for somewhere safer to hide, and spot a clump of dense foliage less than 10 yards from the steps. If you have sufficient ammunition to be able to fire a gun, we do ample enough. You decide to make a dash for the clump of foliage before the sniper circles around the crater and picks you off at his leisure. With sweat-slick hands, you raise your gun and get ready to fire as you run for cover. Note: if your endurance point score is low and you are heavily encumbered, it may be advisable to discard some of your backpack items now in order to increase your stealth skill score before you attempt your run. I can also heal myself before. You're holding a pistol, machine pistol, shotgun, or rifle. We have ammo only for the first two, so it should be machine pistol, I guess. Let's go with the trusty machine pistol. You drop back the bolt of your G12 and make a quick check of the magazine to ensure that you have sufficient bullets to cover yourself. And with your pulse pounding loudly in your ears, you get ready to run to the forest. Slowly, you count down from 5, and the moment your count is complete, you leap to your feet and scramble up the steps. As you clear the crater, you fix your destination and sprint towards it, your machine pistol blazing at your hip. Add together your stealth skill total and your current endurance point score. Stealth is 7 minus 3, that's 4 minus 2, that's 2 plus 24, endurance 26. Your total score is 13 or more. Breathless with the exertion and exhilaration of your run, you crash through the foliage and throw yourself to the ground, scarcely able to believe that you escaped from the crater without being shot. You're beginning to think that the sniper failed to see you when suddenly there's a gunshot, and a bullet smacks into the base of a tree less than 6 feet from where you lie. In an instant, your exhilaration vanishes, and a cold, numbing fear returns to chill your spine. You freeze, not daring to move a muscle in case you betray your hiding place. Suddenly, you hear the sound of feet moving through the scrub, and you know that the sniper is approaching and that you must act quickly if you are to escape alive. Frantically, you scramble to your feet and run headlong into the forest. You have covered less than 20 yards when you chance a glance over your shoulder to see someone following in your wake. You are moving too swiftly to be able to discern their features, yet you dare not slow your pace to satisfy your curiosity. It could prove to be a fatal mistake. Soon the timberland begins a steep descent towards the plateau. Although you have difficulty checking your speed, you manage to stop yourself by clinging to a trunk at the edge of the clearing. Two options. Dash across the plateau towards the cover of the pines on the far side, or skirt around the plateau under cover of its perimeter trees. I think the first option is to invite sniper bullet quite easily. Second options sound or sane. The steep ground that borders the plateau is dry and flaky, and it crumbles frequently beneath your weight. Progress is painfully slow as you inch your way around the wooded outcrop, hugging the trunks of the mountain pines to prevent yourself from falling into the valley far below. Add together your field craft 5 and stealth skill 7, so that's 12, minus 3, that's 9, minus 2, 7. Add to this total your current endurance points. 24, so 31, if it is 20 or more. Eventually, you reach firmer ground beyond the plateau, and you are able to continue your descent through the forest with comparative ease. Soon you reach a stream that you discovered during your ascent, and you stop here briefly to try to determine if you are still being pursued. The surrounding trees seem unnaturally quiet, and it is easy to imagine that an assassin lurks behind every trunk. You continue with trepidation, following the water as it flows west towards the Suicidal Mountains. Not really on the map, we're somewhere around here, I guess. You cover 12 miles without incident, and by early evening you arrive at a small bridge where a road running north to south crosses the stream. You check your map, but the road is too minor to be listed. You're hungry and must eat a meal, or lose 3 endurance points. Two options: leave the stream and follow the road, or continue along the stream. Following roads with a sniper on our tail. Sure about that. Sun has disappeared behind the mountains, and dusk is turning to darkness when you reach the small town of Elfrida. Not on the map either. It was once the center of a close rural community, but now it is no more than a sorry collection of wind-damaged stores and cabins straddling the stream. Aching with fatigue and the pain of the minor injuries which you have sustained during your flight from the assassin, you decide to investigate the little town and rest there a while. A derelict diner with a cellar offers the best place for shelter. Attempting to reach Tucson alone and in the dark does not strike you as a good idea, so you decide to spend the night here in the cellar. Continue tomorrow at first light, worried that the assassin may still be on your trail. You set about barricading the cellar door. Only when you are sure that he could not possibly enter without waking you, do you settle down for some much-needed sleep. Before you sleep, you must eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points. I've removed my round of machine pistols fired earlier as well. After 10 hours deep uninterrupted sleep, you wake feeling thoroughly refreshed. Restore 4 endurance points. The barricade is still intact, and once it is dismantled, you arm yourself before investigating the 6 other buildings that comprise the town. All of them are empty and show no signs of having been entered during the night, prompting you to believe that you may, at least for the time being, have given the assassin the slip. In a shack behind the diner, you discover a motorcycle that is in a serviceable condition. The tires are sound and the gas tank is over half full with gasoline, but its oil level is very low. As you kickstart the engine, you can only hope that it will get you as far as Tucson before breaking down. After studying the map, you mount your new vehicle and set off heading north along Highway 666. You have ridden only 7 miles when a collapsed bridge forces you to change direction and travel west along an unmarked mountain road. You enjoy the cool breeze whipping through your hair as you ride at speed along this empty trail, and you cover more than 20 miles before coming to a small town where a sign proclaims, "Gleason welcomes careful drivers." Two options: we can stop at this mountain town, or ride through without stopping.
not sure. I should stop there. Should give the most distance we can with the sniper behind. Beyond Gleason, the road snakes its way through hills covered with pine, pinyon, and dull grey rocks. The road surface deteriorates rapidly, and very soon you are forced to stand in order to remain in full control of your bouncing machine. Then another, more serious hazard looms into view. A landslip from the surrounding hillside has heaped a mound of rock in the middle of the road ahead, blocking it completely. The only way to circumvent this obstacle involves a difficult descent into a gully that runs parallel to the road, and then an equally difficult climb out again. Two options. Attempt to negotiate this hazard without dismounting the motorcycle, or abandon the bike and scale the rockfall on foot. Let's trust our driving skills here to just upgrade it before adventure. Gently, you coax the bike's front wheel over the edge of the steep gully, and as it tips forward and gathers speed, you work at the clutch and front brake levers to keep the machine upright and under control. The descent is fast and exciting until you hit a patch of loose shale and feel the front wheel juddering sideways. Then what moments before was controlled and exhilarating suddenly becomes a terrifying free fall. Pick a number from the random number table and add it to your driving skill. That's 3 plus 6, 9. If your total is 9 or more, your steely nerve and natural balance help you to regain control of the motorcycle and steer it safely to the bottom of the gully. Then you follow the wide trench until you find a suitable pace on the far side of the rockfall to make your exit. The ascent is accomplished without difficulty, but when you clear the crest of the gully and bring your motorcycle to a stop, you notice something that makes you break out in a cold sweat. From the eastern end of the gully, a cloud of dust is approaching. It is over a mile distant, but at once you can tell that it is being kicked up by a motorcycle. You stare at the approaching machine, and although you cannot see the rider, you know that it is the assassin. Chilled by his proximity, you win back the throttle and gun your bike along the bumpy mountain road. Gradually, the condition of the road improves, and you are able to increase your speed. 5 miles have slipped swiftly under your wheels when you see the ruins of a town shimmering on the horizon and catch a glimpse of the metalled highway that runs through it, headed north to south. It is the ruins of Tombstone, famed for the swift and ferocious gunfight that took place here at the OK Corral on 26 October 1881. Tombstone. Okay, we're on the mountain road. Alright, we went between the highways there. Okay. As you approach the town and see its faded sign, you remember the old romantic Hollywood films you saw when you were young, in which Doc Holliday and the Earp brothers met and defeated the Clantons and McLaurys, their bitter sworn enemies. The post-Holocaust storms have left this place looking much like it must have done to those men when they shut it out over 100 years ago. The historical buildings are sun-bleached and shabby, and the main street is completely empty, devoid even of auto wrecks and other 21st century debris. As you ride along the main street, you notice that the sound of your motorcycle's engine has grown coarser and louder. It is as if it were filled with loose nuts and bolts. If you possess some engine oil, we don't. We had the option to take that last book, I think. Well, the engine emits the ominous sound of grinding metal and immediately the rattling ceases. Unfortunately, so too does the engine. The piston has become so hot that the rings that seal it have welded themselves to the bore. At once you realize what has happened.
As you steer the powerless machine to the side of the street, you are filled with dread at the prospect of having to continue your journey on foot. Must now take a drink, or lose 3 endurance points. You are staring gloomily at the ruined machine, considering your next course of action, when you hear a vehicle approaching. Your dread deepens when you look up to see an all too familiar dust cloud approaching the town from the east. Instantly you know that the motorcycle approaching Tombstone is being ridden by the assassin who murdered your 3 companions. The fear that has haunted you during the past 2 days returns once more to tighten your stomach as hurriedly you search for somewhere to hide. The Tombstone courthouse is the nearest building, and you rush into its lobby as the assassin rides into town. Ahead, the doors to the courtroom are chained and padlocked, preventing easy entry, so you look for somewhere else to hide in this old historical building. 2 options present themselves. You can climb a wide staircase to the first floor, or you can run along a corridor that leads away to your left. So the 2 options: ascend the stairs or follow the corridor. I think we're better to ascend the stairs and get the high ground. You race up the stairs and find an office that overlooks the main street. From the window, you watch the clan rider bring his motorcycle to a halt at the edge of town. He's wearing a close-fitting black leather riding suit, a full-face black crash helmet, and is sporting a rig of combat equipment that makes him look like a futuristic space warrior. Slowly he climbs off his machine, pausing briefly to adjust the controls of his air-conditioned riding suit. Then he unsheaths a scoped rifle from his saddle holster and advances along the main street, using the shadowy doorways of the stores and offices to cover his approach. He is 30 yards away, on the opposite side of the street, when he stops to select an orange-tipped bullet from a pouch at his hip. You watch with fearful anticipation as he presses the round into the breech of his rifle, raises the weapon to his shoulder, and takes aim at your motorcycle. There is a sharp crack, followed by a roaring boom, as the incendiary round ignites and explodes the fuel tank. With pounding heart, you watch as coolly he lowers his rifle and proceeds to reload it. You wish to attempt to shoot the assassin while he is busy reloading his rifle. I think this is our one chance. You give your enemy your undivided attention, for he is a formidable opponent. Also, he presents a difficult target. He is partially hidden behind the brick pillar for hardware store, and his black suit merges readily with the shadows. Despite these disadvantages, you know that this may be your only chance to put an end to his pursuit and avenge the lives of your 3 dead comrades. Watch as he completes the reloading of his rifle. Then he shoulders the weapon and takes up a pair of binocular-like field glasses, which hang from a strap around his neck. He places these bulky lenses to his visor and methodically scans the surrounding rooftops. Seems a curious thing to do as the buildings are very close. Surely he does not need binoculars to be able to see if anyone is standing on top of them. You prepare your own weapon and get ready to take aim, and a chill stabs your heart as he scans the first floor windows of the courthouse, and you realize that he's not using a regular pair of binoculars. They are sophisticated high-resolution image intensifiers. Immediately you duck back from the window, but you cannot help but fear that he has already located your position. Moments later, there is a crash of breaking glass and you catch sight of something vaguely resembling a can of food as it flies through the window. It bounces on the carpeted floor and immediately there is a flash followed by a stream of sickly cream-colored gas that shoots from its base. As the gas fills the room rapidly, your throat tightens and your eyes stream. A wave of nausea hits you, and frantically you rush from the room, for it fills to the ceiling with noxious tear gas. Lose 3 endurance points. Could have been worse. Coughing and retching, you stagger along the corridor and down a flight of stairs that leads to a fire exit at the rear of the building. Desperate for clean air, you kick its logging bar and stumble out into the courthouse yard. You have taken just 2 steps when the assassin comes rushing around the corner of the courthouse with his rifle in hand. You possess a missile weapon and sufficient ammunition for 1 round of fire. We do. In this crucial moment between life and death, you are no longer able to think rationally. Your actions are pure reflex, and as you raise your gun to fire, everything seems to be happening in slow motion. For a fleeting moment, you feel super aware, something that the fighters at the OK Corral must have experienced in the first few seconds of their savage encounter. And all hell breaks loose as your gun spits fire simultaneously. Add together your stealth and shooting skill scores. That's 7 plus 5, 12 minus 2. That's 10 minus 2, that's 8. To this total, add your current endurance points. 25, so that's 33. Your total is 21 or more. For a few seconds, you stand entranced, not knowing for sure whether you are dead or alive. Need to remove 1 9mm ammo. Then, as the warm breeze clears the lingering gun smoke, you see the body of the assassin lying motionless beside the courthouse wall. You are filled with a great sense of relief, as if a huge weight has been lifted from your shoulders. The shock of your encounter takes hold of your body, and you begin to shiver uncontrollably. You must now take a drink, or lose 3 endurance points. With grim curiosity, you move forward to search the body. You pull off his helmet and stare at the face of his killer. At once you recognize the cruel angular features. He is Helmut Varken, a top AVOC assassin who achieved infamy on 1 May 2008 when he assassinated both the President of the United States and the General Secretary of the Supreme Soviet at an emergency summit meeting in Rome. AVOC was proud of his ignoble feat, and when by chance they leaked his identity, his photograph appeared on every television screen and on the front page of every newspaper around the world. We were only 7 years old at the time, but the image of his face became synonymous with the evil that AVOC represented, and it etched itself indelibly upon your mind. As your pulse returns to normal, you begin to search his blood-stained body. You are disappointed to find that his aircon suit has been irreparably damaged, but you discover more than enough useful items to compensate for the loss. A rifle with 22 rounds of 7.62. Well, enough ammunition for next book and the next one. We shall think some 7.62 just in case. Maybe 2 rounds. Be able to take 4 rounds of 9mm. A pistol, we have 120 rounds of 7.62, 15 rounds of 9. A combat viewer. Sounds nice. Those must be the binoculars he had. Should I threw away my standard binoculars? HE grenade, tear gas grenade, CB radio, knife, 3 meals. Yeah, another meal would be a good idea. Enough medical supplies for 8 medikit unit. Okay, let's use them all up and fill our medkit. Enough water for 3 rings. Can fill our canteen as well. Compass and a map. Do we need the map? After finishing your search, you leave the courthouse and commandeer Varkin's motorcycle. You are anxious to reach Tucson as quickly as you can, so you kickstart the machine and speed away from Tombstone, heading north on Highway 80. We're so far away from the colony now, though. We'll join them in Tucson, but we'll probably encounter some gangsters from Mad Dog, Michigan on the way. You follow the highway 25 miles across Cochise County, and shortly before mid-afternoon you arrive at the junction with Interstate 10. Back on track. From here, it is only a short ride west to the town of Benson, where you stop to take a closer look at the tire tracks that are etched in the freeway's dusty surface. You are convinced that they are made by the DC-1 convoy, and you hazard a guess that they are at least a day old. You are about to leave the tracks and return to your newly acquired motorcycle when you hear something that sets your heart racing. It is the voice of a young woman, and she's calling out your name. You spin around, hardly able to believe your eyes when you see Kate Norton waving at you from a gas station on the opposite side of the freeway. In a daze, you run towards her, and she towards you, and together you meet in the center of the deserted highway, locked in an embrace that melts away all memory of the ordeal you have endured over the past 2 days. When at last the exhilaration of your unexpected reunion subsides, she tells you that the colony has already reached Tucson, and is safely encamped with the Tucson colony inside a stronghold they have established at the Davis Montana Air Force Base. When you and the rest of Captain Frankland's team failed to make the dimming rendezvous, the colony continued as planned, hoping that you will join them en route. Gradually, as they progressed further west, their hopes faded until they accepted that you must have perished during the raid on Ciudad Juarez. But Kate refused to abandon hope. When the convoy reached Benson, she insisted that she wait here in case you had been unable to find transport and were heading for Tucson on foot. Reluctantly, they agreed to her request, knowing full well that there was little they could do to prevent her from staying. You ask if she has seen any clan activity during the 24 hours she has been here, and she says that there has been none. The freeway and the surrounding area have remained completely deserted. It's funny, she says, but since we left Lordsburg, it's as if they lost interest in us. I think they were waiting to hear some good news from an agent they sent after us, you reply, as you walk together towards the place where Kate has parked your roadster. They've a long wait if they're still expecting him to call. Kate looks at you with a puzzled expression, and you recount in detail the events that befell the team during the escape from Ciudad Juarez. As you drive out of Benson, you tell her how Frankland, Haskell, and Knott met their death, and how you avenged them in your showdown with their murderer Helmut Varkin at the Tombstone Courthouse.
What do you think's gonna happen when Mad Dog finds out that you've killed Varkin?
She asks nervously. Well, he ain't gonna be happy, that's for sure. Especially after what we did at Juarez. I don't know what he'll do. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, you do not have to wait long. You are 5 miles out of Benson when you notice in your driving mirror a cloud of dust rising in the distance. Tell Kate and she turns around to take a look.
Clan Scouts, a pack of them, she reports. Looks like 20 bikes, but they're not on their own. They're tailing a car. Well, I think it's a car. It's got 4 wheels.
She continues to stare into the distance for several minutes, then she says,
I don't like the look of it, Carl. Let's not hang around to say hi to these dudes, okay?
Respond by flooring the gas pedal until the roadster speedometer registers 100 miles an hour.
The pack's dropping back,
shouts Kate, her voice barely audible above the noise of the rushing wind.
But that car is gaining on us.
We're speeding over a girder bridge across a watercourse known locally as the Pantano Wash. When you see the car in your mirror, it is black and bullet-shaped, with an enclosed driver's compartment and a roaring lion's head emblazoned on the hood. It accelerates to within 20 yards of your trunk, and you catch sight of the driver's snarling face. A shiver runs down your spine when you recognize the manic features of Mad Dog, Michigan. Kate draws her pistol, but before she can take aim, you hear a burst of heavy machine gun fire and see muzzle flashes erupting from the front of Mad Dog's speedster. The heavy caliber rounds slam into your trunk, and the force of their impact at high speed sends your roadster carrying into a skid. Pick a random number from the random number table and add it to your driving skill. Damn, after boosting our driving skill, we get a 1. 7 total. If the result is 7 to 10. Desperately, you fight to regain control of your roadster as it slews off the freeway and skids towards a crash barrier. With a numbing jolt, the car scrapes along the molded steel barrier for more than 200 yards before you are able to steer it back onto the freeway. The impact has crushed your front fender and torn a jagged hole in the driver's door, which has left your arm badly bloodied. Just 4 endurance points. The moment you bring the roadster back onto the freeway, Mad Dog draws up alongside. Kate empties her pistol at his head, but the clan leader just laughs. His speedster is equipped with bulletproof glass, and the slugs fail to penetrate. He sneers and draws his fingers across his throat before swerving towards you in an attempt to ram you off the road. If you are to avoid this ramming attack, you must take swift evasive action. You can either accelerate, brake heavily, or swerve to the left. I don't think there's any other good idea besides swerving. Accelerate is faster, braking, well, he will just ram us. Mad Dog follows your maneuver and rams you towards the crash barrier. Kate screams as the barrier looms into view. A high-speed collision is imminent. Add together your driving skill total and your current endurance point score. That's 6 plus 25, 31 if your score is 21 or more. Brake heavily and Mad Dog Speedster crosses in front of you to the barrier with a terrific screech. Metal twists and sparks fly from the fender as he scrapes along the crash barrier at nearly 100 miles an hour. You pull back and overtake him on the right, powering your roadster away as he fights to free himself from the barrier's magnet-like grip. Collision with the barrier has damaged Mad Dog's car. A section of the front fender is buckled against the wheel, slowing it considerably. In your deadly duel, his supercharged car no longer has the advantage of speed. However, even though it is damaged, it still possesses enough power to enable him to catch you. In the distance, a bridge is fast approaching. It crosses a channeled drainage way fed by the Pantano Wash. An M-Corp Land Cruiser, one of the colony's vehicles, has broken down and been abandoned on its approach ramp. The bus blocks 2 lanes of the freeway, leaving just enough room for one vehicle to pass. The two of you speed towards this narrow gap, neck and neck, each determined to be the first to get across. Desperate to beat you, Mad Dog brings his speedster dangerously close. You are 3 seconds away from the gap when he rams your door. Add your driving skill total to your current endurance point score. At 31. Pick a number from the random number table. At 0. Your total is 29 or more. Thank you, Endurance Medkits. Save the day. You anticipate Mad Dog's attack and steer into the collision. Your skillful maneuver enables you to keep in a straight line and sends Mad Dog's speedster veering away to the left. You hit the ramp, shoot through the narrow gap and cross the bridge, glancing in your mirror to see Mad Dog Michigan's car soar into the air. For a moment it seems to hang in the sky, then it tips forward and plummets into the drainage way. You and Kate entered Tucson's stronghold to receive a hero's welcome. Oh, Davis, Montanier. The colony is overjoyed. They fear they will never see either of you alive again. They are saddened to hear your account of how Captain Frankland, Sergeant Haskell, and Marine Knott met their death. Yet they draw comfort from the knowledge that their memory will live on in the hearts of the colonists. If it were not for their ultimate sacrifice, the colony will never have reached Tucson intact. After celebrating your successful return, the colony leaders set about planning the last stage of the journey to California. Confident that now Mad Dog Michigan is no longer around, his army will be disinclined to continue the pursuit of the convoy. But the nagging doubt remains in your mind. Did Mad Dog Michigan really meet his doom at the Pantano Bridge? For you, called Phoenix, the answer to that question, and the final part of your exodus to California, await you in Book 4 of the Freeway Warrior series, entitled California Countdown. Next week, same time, same channel.